Pinup Audio presents My Stupid Heart, written by Whitley Cox, performed in dual narration by Ava Lucas and Cale Williams.
Dedicated to the clitoris, which has roughly 8,000 nerve endings, but still isn't as sensitive as a conservative alpha bro dude on the internet.
Chapter 1. Ryker. He could recite it verbatim. He'd read it so many times. But that didn't stop the chills from sweeping down his spine as Ryker McKnight stared at Molly's text message for the 500th time.
Hey, Ryker, I'm really sorry to do this right now. I know you're all at the wedding. I wish we could be there, but you've always said that I could call or message whenever. Well, I need help. I've gone to the police and filed a restraining order, but it's not working. I'm scared for Sasha and for me. I briefly tried dating her soccer coach. It was great at first, but after a couple of months, he became really possessive and would demand to read my text messages and emails. He found an email from Rob and Skylar thanking us for the twins' birthday presents, and he lost his mind. Accused me of having an affair with Rob. He tried tapping my phone, and I found cameras in the house, even the bathroom and Sasha's room. He's been arrested, but he was released. He won't leave us alone. We came home last night after Sasha's dance recital to find Sasha's cat dead and nailed to the side of the house. Sasha is terrified. The police have been notified again, but I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Please help.
The pilot just made the announcement that they were less than 30 minutes from landing in Jackson Hole. Ryker already had a rental vehicle lined up, and he never checked a bag. He'd be at Molly and Sasha's door in under an hour. Molly O'Shea, the widow of one of Ryker's best friends, of his brother-in-arms. Brendan O'Shea had been the salt of the motherfucking earth. He was the guy who reminded them all of what they were fighting for. He was the guy who grounded them when shit got way too fucking real and bleak as fuck. He was the guy who wasn't afraid to hug his brothers, to tell them he loved them, and to check in with a call or a text message just because. He was the guy who reminded them that it was okay to cry, it was okay to feel, and it was okay to not be okay. And he was the brother who took his own life, because while he was busy making sure everyone else was okay, he was battling his own demons behind the veil of his charismatic smile. Because what he saw and experienced in the field, fighting the hellspawn of the earth and protecting the innocent, was too much for him to bear. Not a day went by they didn't all think about Brendan and about what they could have done to help him, to save him from himself the way Brendan had saved them all from themselves at least once. Guilt took up permanent residence in each of their hearts, and they eased that pain just the smallest bit by making sure Brendan's wife Molly and their daughter Sasha was always taken care of. But over the years, Ryker's constant presence in Molly and Sasha's life, helping them move to a bigger house, building them a fence and Sasha a playhouse, fixing drywall and spraying insulation in the attic, it all turned into more than just Ryker showing up for Brendan. His heart got tangled up in the mess, and he showed up for Molly too. If he wanted to be quick about it, he'd take a detour on his way to Molly's, stop at the stalker's house, because he already had the guy's address and every other bit of information about him, and dispose of the creep. He was a master at making things look like an accident. He was a master at making people disappear and never found again. One of his many nicknames among him and his brothers was Mr. Clean, because he never left a fingerprint, let alone a drop of blood or a muddy footprint. He'd taken care of more than enough bad guys in his career that he could probably erase a crime scene in his sleep or with a blindfold on. But this was Molly and Sasha he was talking about. He wouldn't be doing anything with a blindfold. He first needed to get to their house and find out how they were, then create a plan. He'd reach out to local law enforcement and see what they were doing besides placing a vehicle outside Molly's house. Yes, the perp had been arrested, but now he was out, free to terrorize again. Hopefully Sasha didn't have any more pets that the soccer coach could get his hands on. The pilot touched down flawlessly on the tarmac, and Ryker was off the plane and running across the asphalt toward the door less than a minute later, his carry-on duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He grabbed his rental pickup truck at the front desk and shot off a quick text to Molly. "In JH, on my way to you now." He didn't need to punch her address into the GPS. Making his way to Molly was also something he could do in his sleep. In fact, she often came to him in his dreams, which had him waking up guilty as fuck because what they did in his dreams, what he did with his best friend's wife in his dreams, was nothing short of filthy and depraved and 56 shades of wrong. He could put his desires aside. He always did and always would. Molly needed his help, and he would always do everything in his power to protect her and Sasha. It was a vow they all made at Brendan's funeral, and one they all continued to uphold. Regardless of his feelings, he would help Molly. He would always help Molly. His heart would heal later, like it always did when he said goodbye to the woman he loved.
Uncle Ryker!
Sasha said, her long, gangly teenager legs in short shorts carrying her down the cobblestone path from the front door to the driveway. She threw herself into his arms, and he grabbed his duffel bag from the back seat. Holy shit, half-pint. What the hell are you eating? Fertilizer? You've grown like 5 inches since I saw you last. She let go of him and stepped back, beaming.
Maybe because it's been over a year since you've been here. People grow up, you know.
A police officer was already getting out of their car and cautiously making his way across the lawn.
It's okay, Lenny. Ryker is a friend. He's here to help.
Came the soft, feminine voice of Molly from the front door. Lenny nodded, glanced at Ryker, who smiled and waved. Then the cop returned to his patrol car.
I'm taller than Mom.
Sasha beamed, glancing at her mother, who, standing at only 5'2", was as petite and sweet as Ryker remembered. She took her time meeting them in the driveway, her green eyes bright and full of joy as she stared at him with a wide smile.
She is taller than me. She's going to be tall like her dad,
Molly said with pride as she reached them and lifted onto her tiptoes to hug Ryker. She smelled like she always did, of sunshine, almonds, and gardenias. It was a unique scent just to her, and one that drove Ryker wild. She held on for just an extra half-second, and he covertly buried his nose in her strawberry blonde waves before she released him.
It's good to see you, Ryker. It's been way too long. That's what I said,
Sasha chided.
Do we smell or something? Why has it been over a year?
Heat infused his cheeks from both women chastising him. I know. He scratched the back of his neck. I'm sorry.
Well, you're here now. Thank you for coming on such short notice.
Molly's expression turned grim.
Let's go inside and we'll fill you in.
He followed Sasha and Molly into their quaint but well-kept bungalow. It wasn't too big, just the right size for a mother and daughter. The yard wasn't huge, so Molly could easily maintain it herself. When they first moved in, Ryker, Aaron, and Rob flew out for a week and put in a nice big deck for her off the French doors. They also painted her fence and replaced her gutters. Molly never asked them to do any of it. She said she could just as easily hire someone, but she was Brendan's wife, and Ryker and his brothers swore to take care of her. All they had to do was call her, check in, and ask what she needed. She knew better now than to tell them she didn't need anything. That didn't stop them from flying out. It just made them fly out sooner.
Guest room is all ready for you,
Molly said, closing the door behind them.
You know where it is.
Yes, he did. Across the hall from Molly's room.
I can take your bag to your room, Uncle Ryker,
Sasha said, forcing him to relinquish his duffel bag to the lanky teen. She disappeared down the hallway, leaving Ryker and Molly alone.
I'm sorry again for pulling you away from the wedding,
she said, wringing her hands together in front of her as she made her way into the kitchen. The marble-topped island that Ryker, Decker, and Cal installed a few years ago sat looking just as new as the day they finished, only this time it had a big pitcher of lemonade on it with 3 glasses. She knew he was a sucker for tart homemade lemonade. Wedding was yesterday. It's all good. The happy couple is getting ready to head out on their honeymoon. Deck's staying to help Asher around the ranch while Nate is away. It was good to have us all there together. Never happens anymore. You were surely missed. Sasha rejoined them. You both were.
Next wedding, we go no matter what, Mom,
Sasha said.
I can miss a dance recital.
I think Decker and Ryker are the only 2 single soldiers left, Molly teased. Not a lot of weddings left to go to.
Uncle Cal and Hannah haven't gotten married yet, though, right? There still needs to be a wedding. Less people are making it official these days.
Too expensive, Ryker murmured.
Among other things.
Molly replied ruefully. She picked up the pitcher of lemonade and poured 3 glasses. She didn't even bother to ask him if he wanted one. She knew the answer. Everyone and anyone who knew Ryker knew the answer. He took a long sip and sighed as he swallowed. Damn, that was good.
Sasha made this batch,
Molly said, making a puckered face.
Oof, not enough sugar.
I think it's perfect, Ryker said, draining his glass. Perfect, Sash, don't change a thing. His favorite teenager in the world grinned at him over the rim of her glass. So let's get down to brass tacks here, Ryker said. Tell me about this lunatic. Chapter 1. Ryker. He could recite it verbatim. He'd read it so many times. But that didn't stop the chills from sweeping down his spine as Ryker McKnight stared at Molly's text message for the 500th time.
Hey, Ryker, I'm really sorry to do this right now. I know you're all at the wedding. I wish we could be there, but you've always said that I could call or message whenever. Well, I need help. I've gone to the police and filed a restraining order, but it's not working. I'm scared for Sasha and for me. I briefly tried dating her soccer coach. It was great at first, but after a couple of months, he became really possessive and would demand to read my text messages and emails. He found an email from Rob and Skylar thanking us for the twins' birthday presents, and he lost his mind. Accused me of having an affair with Rob. He tried tapping my phone, and I found cameras in the house, even the bathroom and Sasha's room. He's been arrested, but he was released. He won't leave us alone. We came home last night after Sasha's dance recital to find Sasha's cat dead and nailed to the side of the house. Sasha is terrified. The police have been notified again, but I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Please help.
The pilot just made the announcement that they were less than 30 minutes from landing in Jackson Hole. Ryker already had a rental vehicle lined up, and he never checked a bag. He'd be at Molly and Sasha's door in under an hour. Molly O'Shea, the widow of one of Ryker's best friends, of his brother-in-arms. Brendan O'Shea had been the salt of the motherfucking earth. He was the guy who reminded them all of what they were fighting for. He was the guy who grounded them when shit got way too fucking real and bleak as fuck. He was the guy who wasn't afraid to hug his brothers, to tell them he loved them, and to check in with a call or a text message just because. He was the guy who reminded them that it was okay to cry, it was okay to feel, and it was okay to not be okay. And he was the brother who took his own life, because while he was busy making sure everyone else was okay, he was battling his own demons behind the veil of his charismatic smile. Because what he saw and experienced in the field, fighting the hellspawn of the earth and protecting the innocent, was too much for him to bear. Not a day went by they didn't all think about Brendan and about what they could have done to help him, to save him from himself the way Brendan had saved them all from themselves at least once. Guilt took up permanent residence in each of their hearts, and they eased that pain just the smallest bit by making sure Brendan's wife Molly and their daughter Sasha was always taken care of. But over the years, Ryker's constant presence in Molly and Sasha's life, helping them move to a bigger house, building them a fence and Sasha a playhouse, fixing drywall and spraying insulation in the attic, it all turned into more than just Ryker showing up for Brendan. His heart got tangled up in the mess, and he showed up for Molly too. If he wanted to be quick about it, he'd take a detour on his way to Molly's, stop at the stalker's house, because he already had the guy's address and every other bit of information about him, and dispose of the creep. He was a master at making things look like an accident. He was a master at making people disappear and never found again. One of his many nicknames among him and his brothers was Mr. Clean, because he never left a fingerprint, let alone a drop of blood or a muddy footprint. He'd taken care of more than enough bad guys in his career that he could probably erase a crime scene in his sleep or with a blindfold on. But this was Molly and Sasha he was talking about. He wouldn't be doing anything with a blindfold. He first needed to get to their house and find out how they were, then create a plan. He'd reach out to local law enforcement and see what they were doing besides placing a vehicle outside Molly's house. Yes, the perp had been arrested, but now he was out, free to terrorize again. Hopefully Sasha didn't have any more pets that the soccer coach could get his hands on. The pilot touched down flawlessly on the tarmac, and Ryker was off the plane and running across the asphalt toward the door less than a minute later, his carry-on duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He grabbed his rental pickup truck at the front desk and shot off a quick text to Molly. "In JH, on my way to you now." He didn't need to punch her address into the GPS. Making his way to Molly was also something he could do in his sleep. In fact, she often came to him in his dreams, which had him waking up guilty as fuck because what they did in his dreams, what he did with his best friend's wife in his dreams, was nothing short of filthy and depraved and 56 shades of wrong. He could put his desires aside. He always did and always would. Molly needed his help, and he would always do everything in his power to protect her and Sasha. It was a vow they all made at Brendan's funeral, and one they all continued to uphold. Regardless of his feelings, he would help Molly. He would always help Molly. His heart would heal later, like it always did when he said goodbye to the woman he loved.
Uncle Ryker!
Sasha said, her long, gangly teenager legs in short shorts carrying her down the cobblestone path from the front door to the driveway. She threw herself into his arms, and he grabbed his duffel bag from the back seat. "Holy shit, half-pint. What the hell are you eating? Fertilizer? You've grown like 5 inches since I saw you last." She let go of him and stepped back, beaming.
Maybe because it's been over a year since you've been here. People grow up, you know.
A police officer was already getting out of their car and cautiously making his way across the lawn.
"It's okay, Lenny. Ryker is a friend. He's here to help,"
came the soft, feminine voice of Molly from the front door. Lenny nodded, glanced at Ryker, who smiled and waved. Then the cop returned to his patrol car.
"I'm taller than Mom."
Sasha beamed, glancing at her mother, who, standing at only 5'2", was as petite and sweet as Ryker remembered. She took her time meeting them in the driveway, her green eyes bright and full of joy as she stared at him with a wide smile.
"She is taller than me. She's going to be tall like her dad,"
Molly said with pride as she reached them and lifted onto her tiptoes to hug Ryker. She smelled like she always did, of sunshine, almonds, and gardenias. It was a unique scent just to her, and one that drove Ryker wild. She held on for just an extra half-second, and he covertly buried his nose in her strawberry blonde waves before she released him.
"It's good to see you, Ryker. It's been way too long." "That's what I said,"
Sasha chided.
"Do we smell or something? Why has it been over a year?"
Heat infused his cheeks from both women chastising him. "I know." He scratched the back of his neck. "I'm sorry."
"Well, you're here now. Thank you for coming on such short notice."
Molly's expression turned grim.
"Let's go inside and we'll fill you in."
He followed Sasha and Molly into their quaint but well-kept bungalow. It wasn't too big, just the right size for a mother and daughter. The yard wasn't huge, so Molly could easily maintain it herself. When they first moved in, Ryker, Aaron, and Rob flew out for a week and put in a nice big deck for her off the French doors. They also painted her fence and replaced her gutters. Molly never asked them to do any of it. She said she could just as easily hire someone, but she was Brendan's wife, and Ryker and his brothers swore to take care of her. All they had to do was call her, check in, and ask what she needed. She knew better now than to tell them she didn't need anything. That didn't stop them from flying out. It just made them fly out sooner.
"Guest room is all ready for you,"
Molly said, closing the door behind them.
"You know where it is."
Yes, he did. Across the hall from Molly's room.
"I can take your bag to your room, Uncle Ryker,"
Sasha said, forcing him to relinquish his duffel bag to the lanky teen. She disappeared down the hallway, leaving Ryker and Molly alone.
"I'm sorry again for pulling you away from the wedding,"
she said, wringing her hands together in front of her as she made her way into the kitchen. The marble-topped island that Ryker, Decker, and Cal installed a few years ago sat looking just as new as the day they finished, only this time it had a big pitcher of lemonade on it with 3 glasses. She knew he was a sucker for tart homemade lemonade. Wedding was yesterday. It's all good. The happy couple is getting ready to head out on their honeymoon. Deck's staying to help Asher around the ranch while Nate is away. It was good to have us all there together. Never happens anymore. You were surely missed. Sasha rejoined them. You both were.
Next wedding, we go no matter what, Mom, Sasha said. I can miss a dance recital. I think Decker and Ryker are the only two single soldiers left, Molly teased. Not a lot of weddings left to go to. Uncle Cal and Hannah haven't gotten married yet, though, right? There still needs to be a wedding. Less people are making it official these days.
Too expensive, Ryker murmured.
Among other things,
Molly replied ruefully. She picked up the pitcher of lemonade and poured 3 glasses. She didn't even bother to ask him if he wanted one. She knew the answer. Everyone and anyone who knew Ryker knew the answer. He took a long sip and sighed as he swallowed. Damn, that was good.
Sasha made this batch,
Molly said, making a puckered face.
Oof, not enough sugar.
I think it's perfect, Ryker said, draining his glass. Perfect, Sash, don't change a thing. His favorite teenager in the world grinned at him over the rim of her glass. So let's get down to brass tacks here, Ryker said. Tell me about this lunatic.
Chapter 2. Molly. It never got easier seeing Ryker. Knowing that he was on his way always sent the butterflies in her belly into a frenzy. She was relieved that someone was coming to help, but the fact that it was Ryker... He was the first that she reached out to. Ryker, then Decker, as the rest of the guys had settled down with partners and kids. She felt bad pulling Rob away from Skylar and the twins. Aaron had his hands full with his construction company and 4 kids with Isabel, and Asher and Nate had a ranch to take care of, not to mention new wives, and Asher just had a baby. But Ryker was a nomad, and he was usually at her doorstep in roughly 24 hours or less after she called, which was hardly ever, because she knew if she called, one of them would show up, even if she didn't have a problem. If she called, there'd be a knock at her door a day later with one of the guys checking up on her and Sasha. She felt blessed to have such a far-reaching community, a safe village, and 9 adoring and overprotective uncles that would kill and dispose of the body of any boy that dared to hurt Sasha. There was another reason she called Ryker first, though. She tried to deny it, but it was impossible. She was in love with him, and had been for years. And even though she wasn't sure if he felt the same way, since he'd never made a move or given any indication, she tortured herself by calling him, knowing he'd be on the next flight to see her. With the pitcher of lemonade and a plate of cookies, they headed out the French doors that led to the beautiful deck the guys built her a few years ago. She had outdoor light bulbs strung up between posts, a big umbrella to shield them from the unrelenting June sun, and a small water feature burbling placidly in the corner. It was her happy place, her place of zen. She and Sasha both spent hours lounging on the deck, reading books, listening to music, and just enjoying the peace that came with living on a dead-end road with nothing but forest behind them. Add in the nearly 360-degree view of the mountains, and, for a very long time, she considered herself a lucky woman to live in such a beautiful place. At least she used to. As beautiful as it was, Jackson Hole was losing its appeal. It was expensive, riddled with tourists and pretentious millionaires and billionaires, and the locals seemed to survive on a diet of gossip and Botox. None of those appealed to her. Ryker wedged his big, handsome frame into one of the deck chairs and leaned forward to grab a ginger snap.
How long were you and Adrian Michael Huber together?
She was momentarily taken aback by his businesslike question, not to mention how stoic and even-toned he was. His hawk-like amber eyes narrowed as he waited for her response. He probably wasn't judging her, but she sure felt judged. She felt like he was interrogating her. "A couple of months," she said softly, avoiding his gaze and staring out at the surrounding mountains. It wasn't serious. Or at least I didn't think it was. We went out on maybe 12 dates in total. I never even slept with him. She glanced at Sasha, who rolled her eyes. "I know people have sex, Mom," It's fine, Molly grumbled. You're too mature for your age sometimes. She exhaled deeply and focused back on Ryker. I just never felt comfortable bringing him here, and he lives all the way across town. There just wasn't ever the right moment, or a moment where I felt like, okay, it's time to take the relationship to the next level. Then why'd you let it go on for 2 months? Sasha asked. Molly could tell Ryker was thinking the same thing. Because he was nice? We had fun together when we went out? We have the same taste in music and movies and food and… Now that I'm saying it, maybe we don't actually have the same taste. Maybe he was just faking it so we would seem more compatible. You think? Sasha said with a scoff. Molly's cheeks burned, and she shot her teenager a half-hearted, dirty look.
Okay, so how'd you break it off with him?
Ryker asked. He scratched at his sexy, barely there dark scruff. She loved his facial hair. It was always tidy, always trimmed short, and it just gave him the most rugged, animalistic look that filled her dreams until she woke up wet and breathless. I told him that I didn't think it was working, that he was a very nice man and it had nothing to do with him as a person. I just didn't feel that romantic chemistry with him. Which was all true. I don't think I ever felt that spark. I never got butterflies when I saw him. Or right before I saw him. I kind of… Even more heat erupted in her cheeks. I always felt kind of grossed out kissing him. Almost like I was kissing my brother.
You didn't tell him that, did you?
Ryker asked. Oh, God, no. I just told him I thought we were better off friends. That I just didn't see a future with him and I didn't want to waste his time.
Then what happened?
Ryker probed. Guy went psycho, Sasha replied just as Molly opened her mouth to say something. Molly made a noise, but then pressed her lips together and nodded. Mm-hmm, he did. He raged at me in a coffee shop. We got thrown out.
Both of you?
We were apparently making a scene.
Did you go to the police after that?
She shook her head and twisted her napkin to shreds in her lap. I should have. But he didn't hurt me or threaten me. He just blamed me for leading him on like some feminist bitch. Said I was a cock tease and wasted his time and money. Though I paid just as often as he did. I never exploited him. He said I owed him for the nice dinners he took me to.
Owed him as in you owed him sex because he bought you coq au vin?
Ryker asked, his tone morphing from calm and cool to enraged and heated. Anger flashed in his honey-colored eyes. And rather than fear igniting in her belly, it was excitement, arousal, compounded by the fact that he remembered how much she loved coq au vin. It was her favorite dish on the rare occasion she ate out at a restaurant that had fancy cloth napkins. Yeah, she whispered.
Okay, so then what?
He stomped away, got in his truck, and I didn't see him for a few days. Ryker turned to Sasha.
Were you still on the soccer team at the time?
She nodded. Yeah, it was my next game that we saw him again.
And what happened then?
Ryker asked. He benched me the entire game, Sasha replied bitterly. And I'm the best starting forward on the team. I didn't play for even a second. Nobody, and I mean nobody, could understand it. Not my teammates, not the other parents, not even the other team, because we've played them before and they know I'm good. People were asking me if I was injured. It sucked. I went up to Adrian midway through the game and asked him if he was punishing Sasha because I broke up with him, Molly said, glancing at her daughter. He refused to speak to me, pretended I wasn't even there. The next morning, the word slut was keyed into the side of Mom's car, Sasha said.
Did you check the security cameras we installed?
Ryker asked. Molly nodded. Yeah, but it was just a hooded figure, all in black, wearing a balaclava. He knows there are cameras. He saw them when he was here, so he knew to disguise himself.
Tell me about the cameras in the house and bathroom,
Ryker asked. We didn't find them until after I broke up with him, Molly said, shuddering at the memory of finding the small spy cams so expertly hidden in her bedroom, living room, and bathroom.
And were you able to verify that it was Adrian who put them there?
We don't have a lot of guests, besides my book club, but those are all women, and we merely get together to drink wine and occasionally talk about the book we all just read. None of them would do it.
I'd like to speak with the members of your book club,
he said. They're coming tomorrow night, so I'm sure that's fine. Tell him about the text messages and going through your phone, Sasha encouraged, leaning forward and grabbing a ginger snap off the plate. Molly nodded. Embarrassment at getting her and her daughter tangled up in this, making her nauseous. She grimaced before taking in a deep breath and pressing on. Ryker would need all the information. She couldn't leave anything out. That was the other reason I ended it with him. He was insanely jealous. He watched me punch in the code for my phone, then grabbed it one day when I was in the bathroom and went crazy on me when he saw I'd been emailing with Rob. Rob had merely emailed me to thank us for the birthday gift we got the twins. Then he sent a picture of him, Skylar, and the girls at the beach on Morea. Adrian accused me of cheating on him with Rob. When I explained that him taking my phone was an invasion of privacy, he tried to gaslight me by saying only a cheater would have something to hide. Ryker sucked in a deep breath through his nose and nodded. I asked him to leave. He did without a fuss, then showed up the next day to apologize. He said he was crazy about me and had been cheated on before, so it made him a little paranoid. I told him who Rob was, but I don't think he believed me. But we made up and things seemed better. This only happened 2 weeks before I ended it for good, though. But after the jealousy thing and the snooping, I just never felt the same way about him. He kind of gave me the creeps after that. I also never let him come back to the house again. We always had our dates in public. A walk during the day in a busy park, the movies, dinner, bowling, that kind of thing.
Smart,
Ryker said, sipping his lemonade. I should have ended it when he went through my phone. I know that. She glanced at her daughter. I'm sorry I brought this man into our lives. He was my soccer coach. I kind of brought him into our world, too. Molly reached over and squeezed Sasha's hand, offering her daughter a grim smile. I know, but I should have kept things platonic. He should have stayed just your soccer coach.
Okay, so did he ever play Sasha in any more games?
Ryker asked. I had one more game, and he benched me after 4 minutes on the field. I scored and had an assist in those 4 minutes, then he benched me. Other parents even argued with him, and when he said, "Take it up with Molly," I told him I quit and walked off the field. Sasha nibbled on her cookie. But people are blaming Mom.
Who is?
Ryker asked, sitting up in his seat, his focus bouncing between Sasha and Molly. Some of the other players. They know I was one of the better players, and now they're saying that because of my mom, though nobody really knows why, that the team isn't going to make it to the playoffs. Mom kept her relationship with Coach Adrian private, so people are speculating, but nobody really knows. Ryker's nostrils flared.
It's not because of Molly. It's because that dickwad can't take rejection and decided to make it personal.
Molly glanced down at her lap, where her napkin resembled confetti. The cops can't prove he installed the cameras or that he keyed my car. He shows up at just enough places where I am to make it seem like he's following me, but he never interacts with me, so they won't file a restraining order. The most they could do was post the cop outside the house, and that only happened after... Her throat grew tight, and she lifted her head to glance at Sasha. After we came home and found Anthony nailed to the side of the house. But the cops can't even confirm that Adrian did it. The cameras only showed a hooded figure again. He took great care to keep his face hidden. A fat tear slid down Sasha's cheek, and Molly reached over and wrapped an arm around her daughter. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. It has to be him, Mom. I can't think of anybody else that would do any of this. He's lost his mind. Molly swept away a few of her own tears and nodded, swallowing past the hard lump in her throat.
I already have Adrian's address,
Ryker said, standing up.
I'm going to go scope him out. I'll pick up pizza for dinner on my way back.
Molly reached out when he stepped past her, and she locked her hand around his wrist. He stopped abruptly and gazed down at her in slight surprise. Those butterflies in her belly took flight again. I know this is moot, but be careful, please. His smile caused those butterflies to fly around like they were on their third shot of tequila and feeling great about life.
I will be. Don't worry.
She gave his wrist one more squeeze, then let go.
While I'm gone, make a list of anything you need done around here. I'll have quite a bit of time to kill while I'm here and you're at work, and Half Pint is at school.
He winked at Sasha. School ended Friday, Sasha said. I'm done. Nothing but dance until September.
Then you can help me with whatever your mom puts on the list.
He winked at her again and then took off, leaving Sasha and Molly on the deck in the warm early evening sun. The front door closed and the mechanical lock engaged. When Molly and Sasha moved into the house, all the guys made sure the place had a state-of-the-art security system. If it wasn't for Brendan and his love of his hometown, Molly and Sasha would have moved elsewhere a long time ago. Jackson Hole was incredibly expensive, and even though she made a decent wage as a dental hygienist, it wasn't enough to afford the house they were in or Sasha's dance school. Unfortunately, the kind of life insurance Brendan had was invalid because he took his own life, so she and Sasha ended up with nothing when he passed. She received a small amount from the Navy every month and would get his pension eventually, but even that wasn't enough to keep them afloat. Rob and Skylar bought the house, and she paid them rent, and Barnes and Breyer paid for all of Sasha's dance classes. Molly stopped refusing the gifts and help because it fell on deaf ears, so instead, she just considered herself incredibly lucky for the enormous extended family she and her daughter had. But all this crap with Adrian was quickly causing Jackson Hole to lose its appeal, and if Sasha was serious about pursuing dance, they would have to go elsewhere. She'd outgrown the local dance studio a few years ago. You've gone quiet, Sasha said, sipping her lemonade. Ryker will fix this. If anybody can, it's him. I know, Molly whispered, pressing her lips together but unable to curl up the corners into a smile. She pulled in a deep breath. This was where Dad was from, and we've stayed here to honor his memory, and because Gran and Gramps were here. But they're gone now, and... Glancing up the clouds for courage and wisdom, she took a deep breath before bringing her gaze back to her daughter. How would you feel about relocating? Sasha opened her mouth and a small croaking sound came out. I know you have friends here, and starting at a new school would be hard. But you're already in a special online program so you can focus on dance. I'm sure they have a lot of those programs and are better in bigger cities. You don't want to leave just because of Adrian, do you? Molly shook her head. I've been thinking about it for a while. After Gramps died last year, actually. We stayed so you could be close to your only living grandparents, to keep that connection to your dad alive. But now, what do we have here that we couldn't find somewhere else? Ryker will find him, Mom. I know. Then, once he's dealt with Adrian, we can talk about this again, once the fear isn't so consuming. Molly huffed a laugh. How did you get so smart and logical for 14? I have a smart and logical mom. Come on, kiddo. She stood up and offered Sasha a hand to pull her out of her chair. Not that she needed it. That big macho lug won't let us get away with not giving him jobs, so we need to wander around the house and see what needs fixing. I can kick some holes in the walls if need be. That was just the splash of humor Molly's tender heart needed. She wrapped a protective arm around her child and kissed the side of her head. Hopefully, we can find a few things for him to do before we resort to such extreme measures. But if we have to, we will.
Chapter 3. Ryker. Adrian Michael Huber lived in apartment 8A at 28 Glacier Way. He drove a blue Ford Ranger and had $8,000 in his savings account. He belonged to Mountain Fitness Company, where he went every morning between 5:30 and 6:30. Then he drove to the coffee shop on the corner, bought an everything bagel with cream cheese and a flat white coffee, before returning home to shower and get ready for his day job. He worked as an insurance broker for Snowcap Insurance from 8:30 to 4. He didn't take a lunch break, but chose to eat his ham and cheese sandwich at his desk. This allowed him to end his day half an hour early, so he had time to drive to the soccer field for practice. Ryker could have figured this all out by tailing Adrian for a day, but it was easier to field this crap out. Luckily, he knew a guy who got everything he would ever need on Adrian, and it was all sent to Ryker's phone by the time his plane touched down. Sometimes the gray area of the law was a really helpful place to be. He pulled his black Chevy Silverado rental up to the curb in front of Adrian's apartment building. It was only a 2-story complex with what looked like 4 units on the bottom at the front and 4 units on the top at the front. The same setup was probably in the back. They were all walk-ups, with the upper units having stairs. Adrian's unit was on the top right corner, and based on his open windows and the flash of the television screen, the prick was home. Excellent. Brass knuckles, switchblades, and garrote wire were all illegal, but definitely easier to conceal than a gun. He also just preferred the weight of brass knuckles or a blade in his hand, and there was something very satisfying about the crunch of bone when your fist made contact with a well-deserving face. He had all 3 in his pockets, as well as a cute little 9mm stashed to the back of his waistband. He had a license for his gun and was a registered gun owner. Open carry was legal in Wyoming anyway, so he could have strapped the 9mm to his chest and walked straight up to Adrian's door. But where was the fun in that? He made sure his boots didn't create a sound on the stairs as he climbed to Adrian's front door. He also kept his face hidden beneath the brim of a ball cap. There were probably cameras. A gentle rap of his knuckles against the door and a thumb over the peephole, and it was less than 20 seconds before the door swung open. He was inside, with Adrian's shirt front in his fist, and the door slammed shut before the creepy soccer coach could even say a goddamn word. Shoving the man up against the wall, he got right into Adrian's face. "Do you know why I'm here?" Wide brown eyes stared at him with mounting fear. "No, who are you?" "That doesn't matter. It's who I represent that matters." Adrian swallowed. I don't have anything. I don't owe anybody any money. You have the wrong guy." "I don't think I do." Ryker bracketed his forearm against Adrian's throat and wedged a knee against his groin in case he decided to take a chance and run. Then he brought out his phone and brought up all the information Chase, his intel collector, had gathered for him. "Adrian Michael Huber, son of Alice and Alfred Huber, born February 19th, 1983. You have an older sister, Adela, who lives in San Francisco with her husband, Adam, and their 3 kids, Arvin, Alyssa, and Amanda. Jesus, you people and your A-names. Give it a rest already." I don't understand." "You work at Snowcap Insurance as a broker and coach teenage girls soccer. You also have a habit of benching your best players because you can't take rejection. You're a jealous, predatory bastard who spies on women with cameras, reads their text messages, and kills their cats. Stop me if I'm wrong." Adrian's throat bobbed heavily. I need you to leave. I'll call the police." "Go ahead," Ryker said with a smile that made a lot of people piss their pants in fear. "I'll even give you a 5-second head start." Then he released Adrian and stepped back. Like an absolute idiot who thought he actually had a fucking chance, Adrian darted into the living room, presumably where his phone was. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, Ryker counted, before joining Adrian back in the living room and pinning the man to the floor by sweeping his legs out from under him. His phone flew across the room. He hadn't even started to call 911. Ryker stood on each of Adrian's hands, then sat down on top of his thighs before reaching into his pocket and pulling out his switchblade. He popped the sharp and shiny blade and grinned. Tears started to fall down Adrian's cheeks.
Please, please don't. I'll leave her alone. I swear it.
Have you ever seen the inside of a human body before? Ryker asked, ignoring Adrian's blubbering.
Help!
Adrian screamed. Ryker rolled his eyes. Seriously? Fine. Using his switchblade, he sliced off a sizable chunk of Adrian's shirt, then stuffed it into his mouth so he couldn't holler anymore. That's better. Now, where was I? Right. Besides, on shows like Grey's Anatomy and stuff, have you ever seen the inside of a human body before? Do you know what the spleen looks like up close? Raw fear stared back at him. Gently, so as not to break the skin, he skimmed the tip of the blade up Adrian's now bare stomach from his navel to between his nipples. I have. I've held a man's spleen in my bare hands while he was still awake and still alive, watching me. He had a similar look on his face as you do now, only he was also in quite a bit of pain. See, I'm trained to take out the bad guys, the guys that hurt other people for no reason but their own sense of superiority and entitlement. I'm very good at my job. I go in, I shed a lot of blood, then I clean it up so nobody would ever guess a body had been cut into teeny tiny little pieces. I have disposed of bodies in some very creative ways, and never the same way twice. I like to keep things interesting. Tears fell with abandon down the sides of Adrian's face. He shook with fright, and for the briefest of moments, Ryker felt sympathy for the man. Molly and Sasha O'Shea are off limits, you hear me? If I hear that you've even farted within 500 meters of either of them, I will be back, and I will take you off the census so fucking fast. This is a courtesy warning. I could just as easily deal with you now. Nobody would ever find your body. He glanced over at Adrian's phone on the floor near a potted plant. You're welcome to call the cops. Do I recommend it? He faked a frown. Try it and see. Careful not to break Adrian's fingers with his boots, he stood up off the blubbering, terrified man, retracted his switchblade, and stuffed it in his pocket. Then he was gone. Hooligan's Pizza had some of the best fucking pizza Ryker ever tasted. Besides seeing Molly and Sasha, it was the thing he looked forward to the most when he came to Jackson Hole. That and the view, of course. But it also conjured a lot of memories of Brendan. This was where Brendan grew up, and over their years together, Decker and Ryker followed Brendan home quite a bit. Mrs. O'Shea was a top-notch cook, and by the time they left, they were each packing at least 5 pounds of her chicken pot pie and spare ribs around their middles. But it was so worth it. He picked up the pizzas and headed back to Molly's house just as the sky was beginning to darken. He made sure to order a small pizza for the cop parked outside the house, and was careful not to cause alarm when he approached the driver's side door of the patrol car. It was a different officer than before. This time it was a tall African-American man with a noticeable white scar on the left side of his top lip. Can I help you? Just came to introduce myself and see if you wanted some dinner. I've done this kind of thing in the past, and it can get lonely and boring, so I figured pizza might help. He held out the pizza box. The cop's brows lifted, and his dark eyes widened with pleasant surprise. Thank you. He took the box. Officer Kahn, Felix Kahn. They each balanced the boxes on their hips and in one hand so they could shake hands. Ryker McKnight. He knew his dog tags were hanging on the outside of his shirt, and the cop's eyes drifted directly to them. You're a friend of Mrs. O'Shea? Ryker nodded. I served with her late husband. There were 10 of us, including Brendan, so the 9 of us that are left vowed to always be there for Molly and Sasha if they ever needed anything. Well, hopefully Mr. Huber smartens up now that I'm parked out here and you're staying with Mrs. O'Shea. He didn't seem like much of a threat, but nailing that cat to the side of the house proved otherwise. You need to be one sick fucker to do something like that. Ryker chuckled. He liked it when cops dropped their professional decorum a bit and were just real. It humanized them. Yeah, well, I think we can agree that Adrian Huber is a sick fucker. I'm on until 6 in the morning, so rest easy, Mr. McKnight. You should all be safe inside. Ryker did a friendly slap on the cop's shoulder, smiled, then headed toward the front door. Meat lovers with mushrooms from hooligans? You might be my new favorite person, Mr. McKnight. Officer Kahn called from the road where he stood with his open pizza box. It's my favorite, too. Have a good night, Felix. Then he punched his personal code for the front door and entered the house to the delightful and familiar sound of mother and daughter singing terribly, to Taylor Swift from the portable stereo. His smile quickly turned into a laugh as he made his way to the kitchen, where Sasha was cutting up veggies for a veggie tray, and Molly appeared to be making sangria. "It's turning into a party in here," he announced over the music. Molly had her back to him and jumped at his voice, which pulled a cheeky smile from Sasha, who saw him coming from her vantage point behind the island. Molly's face flushed so easily, given her fair complexion, and she didn't let him down this time either. She flashed him a teasing glare. "Don't sneak up on me." "Sash saw me. Just because you're pretending that you're at the Eras tour with all the friendship bracelets doesn't mean I snuck up on you." "How do you know about Taylor Swift, the name of her tour, and the bracelets?" She turned down the music. "I pay attention to the news. Plus, I'm a Chiefs fan, so..." He plunked the pizza boxes on the counter. "Dinner is served, my ladies. I slaved." Sasha dove into the pizza immediately, but Molly hung back, a nervous glint in her eyes. Ryker angled his head to the side, so she knew he wanted to speak in private, and she followed him outside to the deck, closing the French doors. "So how'd it go?" "He's still alive, if that's what you're asking." "Did you maim him? Did you hurt him?" "No bones were broken. I didn't even draw blood." "You're being cagey." Her green eyes formed thin slits as she gazed up at him. A smirk hooked one corner of his mouth. "He knows that to even think about you, let alone come near you, is a death sentence. The threat has been conveyed, and hopefully he's not that big of an idiot and actually listens to it. He's been given his one and only warning." His fingers ached with the need to cup her cheek, to step closer to her body and reassure her with not only words but touch. Instead, he bunched his fingers at his sides. She let out a long exhale, and her shoulders made their way away from her ears. "Thank you, Ryker. Thank you." Then she wrapped her arms around his neck, lifted up onto her tiptoes, and pressed her petite frame against him in a hug. He did his best to keep some space between their bodies and to hug her as a friend, but it was impossible. She made it impossible for him to not smell her hair, relish the feel of her in his arms, or covet that softness in a more than platonic way. When his dick twitched in his jeans, he cleared his throat and broke their embrace, stepping back and shaking her free of him. "We should get in there, otherwise Sash will eat it all." The sigh she made after he turned his back sounded like something you make when you're disappointed or defeated. But that made little sense. Maybe he was just projecting his own feelings and hearing things that weren't there. He sidled up beside Sasha at the island and hip-checked her playfully. "I guess I have to come up with a new nickname for you since you're not really a half-pint anymore, huh?" She grinned at him as she chewed. "I'll always be your half-pint, even if I'm tall enough to be a full pint." He grabbed a slice of the meat lovers with mushrooms, then leaned over and pecked her on the side of the head. "Yeah, you will, half-pint."
Chapter 4. Molly. Molly found herself restless and sexually frustrated Sunday night. Knowing Ryker was in the next room, probably in the bare minimum of clothes, or no clothes at all, was pure torture. He just didn't feel the same way about her that she did him. That was clear now. He saw her as a friend, as a duty, as a vow he made to her dead husband, but not as anything romantic. She knew he was a playboy and could have his pick of women, and he picked many. So why would he want her? She was a boring and frumpy single mom. There was a reason she only attracted weirdos like Adrian. She was damaged goods. And as much as Ryker was an amazing friend, he probably saw her as damaged goods too. And not as the 30-something woman in her sexual prime with a vagina growing cobwebs. Monday morning, after so much tossing and turning, she hauled herself out of bed to the smell of French toast and bacon. Besides adding new fodder to her fantasies, torturing her heart, and fixing anything broken around her house, Ryker's skills in the kitchen, particularly breakfast, were just another reason she looked forward to seeing him. Only once in all the years he'd been coming to visit did she see him without a shirt on, and that brief moment left her mouth dry and her panties soaked. He'd probably been for a run already, done a bunch of push-ups and crunches as well as chin-ups in her garage, since he installed a chin-up bar the last time he was there, and was ready to start the day with a breakfast fit for an entire wrestling team. When it was just her and Sasha, they enjoyed muesli in the morning over their coffee. But Ryker liked to start the day properly, with lots of protein and carbs.
The oven is really the only way to cook bacon.
She heard him say, as she made her way down the hall to the kitchen with her wild bedhead topknot, silky black pajama shorts, and hot pink tank top.
No splatter, and then you just crumple up the parchment paper covered in grease and toss it into the compost.
Good morning. Molly yawned, scuffing her slipper-covered feet over to the coffee maker. Sasha was sitting at the island, still in her pajamas and cradling the 1 cup of coffee Molly allowed her a day.
Morning.
Ryker said, flipping the French toast on the griddle.
I hope you're hungry.
Molly poured herself a big mug of Java and added cream. She'd need the caffeine if she was going to get through the day staring into people's mouths. Just 1 piece of toast for me, please.
I made you lunch,
he said, nodding at a brown paper bag on the counter.
Turkey and Swiss on sourdough, right?
She smiled and nodded. Yes, thank you. His grin caused her insides to liquefy.
Half Pint showed me the list of things you need done around here, so we're going to head to the hardware store once she's dressed.
Sasha rolled her eyes. It's my summer break, you know. I should be sleeping in.
Not on my watch, kiddo. You're up by 0800 every day to help me.
Sasha glanced at her phone. It's 0700. Does that mean I can go back to bed for an hour?
Not today.
He flipped a few slices of French toast out onto a plate.
Too much to do.
Sasha reached for a slice of bacon off the plate and gnawed on it. I like it better when you're less bossy.
I'm never less bossy. You were just younger and therefore couldn't help me as much. Now you're 14, as tall as a giraffe and with a dancer's muscles. I'm putting you to work.
Sasha glanced at Molly with a beseeching look. Help, she mouthed. Molly snorted. When I'm gone, Ryker's in charge. Sasha's pout was mostly fake. Then she perked up, cocked her head to the side, and squinted. You have giant bags under your eyes. Did you sleep? Molly cleared her throat and glanced down at the marble island top, cradling her mug in her hands. Too much sangria. Got a bit spinny. She slid onto the bar stool just as Ryker brought down plates for all of them from the cupboard.
Eat up, ladies.
As always, breakfast was delicious. Ryker knew just how much vanilla and cardamom to add to his egg mixture to bring the French toast to life. Staring at the bottom of her empty coffee mug because she had a hard time not staring at Ryker's handsome everything, she finished chewing the last bite of bacon, then slid off the stool. I need to go get dressed. Can I go hang out at Paula's after dance practice? Sasha asked, staring at her phone, then lifting her gaze to Molly. She says her mom will pick us up and can even bring me home.
What time is practice?
Ryker asked. 4 till 7, Sasha replied before Molly could.
I'll take you to practice,
he said. Let me text Rita and verify, Molly said, pulling her phone from her shorts pocket. She shot off a quick message to Paula's mom, Rita, who replied almost instantly to confirm the girls' plans. Sounds fine to me.
If, for whatever reason, Paula's mom can't drive you home, I can come get you,
Ryker said. Sasha grabbed the last piece of bacon off the tray. Maybe I should see about sleeping over at Paula's so I can sleep in tomorrow.
Not happening,
Ryker said with way too much of a fatherly tone that caused both Molly and Sasha to look at him funny. He must have realized he was overstepping a bit and cleared his throat.
What I mean is that until things with Adrian settle down, I think it's best you're under the same roof as your mom and me at night, okay?
Sasha nodded, but then she couldn't stop herself from teasing him, as was the nature of their relationship. Geez, overprotective much? You going to bubble wrap me before we go to the hardware store too?
Don't tempt me, kiddo.
He locked eyes with Molly a moment later and winked, which only made her panties flood and those stupid butterflies to wake up from their slumber and go crazy. She needed a cold shower, and not just to wake her up. Molly finished work at the dental office at 5, and Ryker was there to pick her up, even though that meant he followed her home in his rental truck, since she drove herself. But he never let even one vehicle come between them. A police cruiser was parked outside her house like it had been when she left that morning, and she waved at Officer Linden as she pulled into her garage. It was book club night, and 6 women were coming over for wine, conversation, and possibly a brief discussion about the book they all just read. She always hosted since her house was typically the quietest. She just had the one child, no spouse, and only one neighbor. Thankfully, everyone brought something to share, and they put the variety of appetizers on the island while they all sat in the living room with their wine and books. Ryker was already in the house when she entered from the garage. The smell of fresh paint met her before anything else. "You painted?" She went to the liquor store next door to her dental office over her lunch break and picked up 4 bottles of wine. So she plunked them on the counter in the kitchen as her eyes scanned the open-concept kitchen, dining, living space for new color.
Just the trim,
he said, joining her in the kitchen as she put the rosé and Pinot Gris in the fridge.
Also fixed that squeaky and sticky closet door in Sasha's room, cleaned the gutters, trimmed the hedge, mowed the lawn, and put some sealant on those cracks in your driveway.
Wow. Is Sasha even talking to you if you made her do all that?
She loves me. That kid'll never give me the silent treatment. Besides, I made it fun.
She's a 14-year-old girl. She does not find manual labor fun. She whines when I ask her to take out the garbage.
You're just using the wrong approach.
He opened up the fridge and pulled out a container with the leftover pizza.
How was your day?
Long. My neck hurts from hunching over to clean teeth for hours.
Here, turn around.
He touched her shoulder gently so she would spin around and not face him. He set his pizza slice down on the island, brushed her hair over her shoulder. Then 2 magical thumbs began to work the twin knots right at the base of her neck. Her head lolled forward, and she closed her eyes, melting into the pressure, into the touch of his skin on hers. Did the man have any flaws? He could cook, he could fix, he could fight, he could massage. Did he have a 6th toe she didn't know about or something? A lisp as a child, maybe? The groan bubbled up from the depths of her chest before she could stop it. But it woke her up enough that she stepped away and shook herself free of him. Thank you for that. She cleared her throat. Thank you, but I am fine. I am A-okay. All healed, all better, no neck problems here. He was looking at her like she was a crazy person.
Moll?
Nope, all good. I need to change and get ready for tonight. You go do whatever it is you need to do. Okay, see you later. Then, like an idiot, she skirted around him and headed down the hall to her room, closing the door way too abruptly and cringing when it rattled the whole house. Her head fell back against the door and she slammed her palm into her forehead. Stupid, stupid, stupid. How could she be so stupid? Easy. Ryker always made her lose her mind when he touched her, because his touch was platonic and never in the place on her body that she wanted it most. "What's with the rental truck?" asked Susanna as she stepped over the threshold and into Molly's house later that night, carrying a plate of deviled eggs. "A family friend is visiting for a few days to help with some projects around the house," Molly said. It wasn't a total lie, so her belly didn't do its normal nauseating flip whenever she was forced to lie. She'd always been a terrible liar, ever since she was a child. More often than not, lying made her vomit. But she figured this wasn't a lie, it was simply an omission of all the facts. Ryker was, in fact, a family friend, And he was visiting, and while he was here, he would help with projects around the house. His initial reason for flying here, so spur of the moment, was nobody's business. Susanna merely nodded and set her plate down on the table while helping herself to some wine. Evelyn and Sienna always carpooled and came together. Rosalie walked since she lived just a few blocks away, and Olivia and Kate, moms from Sasha's soccer team, usually arrived late because they had kids, dinner, and sports to deal with beforehand. But within 15 minutes, they were all seated in Molly's living room with their wine, appetizers, and books. After she changed out of her scrubs and had a shower, Molly came out to find Ryker gone. His truck was still in the driveway, but he'd made himself scarce and was hiding outside. Her face still heated to an uncomfortable temperature at the thought of their awkward interaction in the kitchen. Correction, her awkward reaction to him touching her. Stupid, stupid, stupid. So, I think the heroine forgave the hero too easily, Sienna said, nibbling on a nacho chip she dipped into the sour cream on her plate. That grovel scene was like 3 sentences. I want it to be pages. I want him to give up something for her. And Damien didn't. His character arc fell flat for me. Not enough growth. Molly nodded as she agreed with Sienna. She and Sienna had the same taste in books. The spicier the better. See, I found the heroine grating, Olivia replied. Sure, she forgave him quickly, but she couldn't make up her mind about what or who she wanted. And was it just me, or did anybody else get, like, a serial slut vibe from her? Eyes around the living room went wide. Serial slut vibe? Molly asked. First of all, serial slut sounds redundant, but also that feels kind of shamey. I thought Annabelle was unapologetically sexually liberal. Like Samantha from Sex and the City. She never cheated, and she didn't do relationships until she was ready. She enjoyed sex, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Several heads bobbed around the room. Several, but not all. Not Olivia or Kate. Their eyes formed matching thin slits. Well, I don't like the heroines in my books being whores, Kate said haughtily. Olivia nodded and sipped her Pinot Grigio. We all know your favorite trope is the virgin trope, Kate, Susanna said, an eye roll in her voice. Let's not forget that these characters are fictional people. Sienna nodded. Annabelle gave up a lot for Damien. She settled down, she moved from the city to the suburbs, she changed jobs. The woman literally went from being the managing partner at her law firm in New York to running a family law practice in Westchester. Sienna glanced at Molly for support. Damien went no contact with his overbearing parents. That was it. And it was really not much of a sacrifice since he'd basically done it already. His parents had a reason to be concerned about Annabelle. Her history with men in the city was no secret. Olivia uncrossed and recrossed her legs while giving Molly some seriously questionable stink eye. The French door from the deck opened, and all eyes and bodies pivoted to watch the hunk of handsomeness that was Ryker McKnight walk across the threshold. Good evening, ladies, he said, flashing that famous Ryker smile. Every single one of them sighed, even the married women. He had twigs and pine needles in his dark hair and a few dirt smudges on his cheeks, but that only made him sexier. Stopping at the island to grab a deviled egg and pop it into his mouth whole, he kept his eyes on Molly. Aren't you going to introduce us to your family friend? Susanna probed, nudging Molly. Molly cleared her throat and smiled, avoiding not only Ryker's penetrating stare but also the continued rage eyes that Kate and Olivia were shooting at her. Ladies, this is Ryker McKnight. He was friends with Brendan and has remained a constant friend in our lives over the years. He comes and helps out whenever he has time. Ryker's smile grew. I had some time off and gave Moll a call and asked what needed to be done around the place. No big deal. Always love visiting and catching up. Well, When you're done here, you can come and trim my hedge, Sienna purred, eye-fucking the bejesus out of Ryker. Rosalie and Evelyn snorted, but also nodded. Ryker merely chuckled, then focused back on Molly.
I'm gonna jump in the shower.
All she could do was nod. Then he disappeared down the hallway. Nobody said a word until the bathroom door snicked shut and the shower started. Then all eyes were on her. "Tell me you're hitting that," Susanna said. "Please." Molly shook her head. "He's just a friend."
So he's gay?
Rosalie asked. Sadness swept into her heart and she swallowed. "No, he's not. He's just a good friend." She glanced down at her lap, where she'd shred her bookmark without even knowing it. There were 10 of them altogether, a team. Then Brendan passed when Sasha was just a baby, and all his friends took it really hard. They also vowed to always take care of us. And over 13 years later, they still do. Ryker and his twin are the only two who aren't married with families, though. And Decker, his brother, is a lot quieter and low-key. Ryker is always the first to volunteer to come. He's also the one that checks in the most.
You're telling me there are 2 of those?
Rosalie asked, pointing down the hallway.
2.
Molly giggled and nodded. Yeah, but there was only one Ryker McKnight.
Can we get back to the book, please?
Olivia asked with irritation in her tone.
Is there something you'd like to discuss, Olivia?
Susanna asked.
You and Kate have both been rather hostile this evening.
We just weren't fans of the book, Kate said quickly. Then why are you so eager to get back to discussing it? Evelyn countered.
Because this is a book club,
Olivia pointed out.
It's what we're supposed to do. No, it's a group of women who agree on a specific book to read for a month, then get together, drink wine, eat food, bitch about life and the patriarchy, and maybe talk 10 minutes about the book.
Susanna rolled her gray eyes.
And up until now, you 2 have been fine with that, so that tells me something else is up.
Olivia and Kate's cheeks were as pink as Pepto-Bismol. I didn't mind the book, Sienna said, breaking the tension. She was always the peacekeeper. I mean, it wasn't my favorite, but I finished it with a smile on my face. I do agree that Damien should have done more. He should have sacrificed more, and his gravel scene was too short. But the happily ever after did make me swoon.
And those sex scenes,
Rosalie added while fanning herself.
Ooh!
Molly mouthed, "Thank you," to Sienna and Rosalie. They offered her friendly smiles back. All eyes were drawn down the hall when the doorknob for the bathroom jiggled. Every single woman in that living room was hoping that Ryker would exit wearing nothing but a low-slung towel. And even though Molly knew he'd be fully dressed, she still hoped. Hope was all she had left. Of course, she was right. And he emerged with damp hair, gray sweatpants, yum, and a tight black t-shirt. Susanna said what we were all thinking. Gray sweatpants are second best to naked or a towel. Rosalie, Sienna, and Evelyn all said, "Amen," at the exact same time. Kate and Olivia shot daggers at Molly, while Molly tried to shrink herself to the size of a sparrow in the corner of her couch.
Chapter 5. Ryker. He gave the women as much time by themselves as he could, but by 8:45 he figured some of them would be getting ready to leave, so he needed to catch them and question them before they headed home. His belly also rumbled like a starved bear post-hibernation, so after updating all the guys via their group chat on his brief visit to Adrian's yesterday, he left the guest room to go find food. Thankfully, all the women were still there, and there was quite a bit of food left, too. "Who made the deviled eggs?" he asked, popping another one into his mouth. "I like that bit of spice you added there." "That would be me," said the gray-eyed woman with wavy blonde hair and large breasts. She sat beside Molly on the couch. "I add just a dollop of sriracha,
but I definitely think it gives it that necessary heat component that regular deviled eggs lack.
She preened herself by tucking a strand of hair behind her ear and touching her neck, all the while flashing him a flirty smile and raking her eyes up and down his torso. He made himself a small plate of snacks, grabbed a can of sparkling water from the fridge, and casually made his way over to the living room. There were no seats left, so he brought over one of the stools from the kitchen island. All eyes stayed on him as he moved, and nobody said a word. "So, who is who?" he asked, all friendly smiles, but secretly sizing every single one of them up and making a cursory evaluation.
Susanna,
the deviled egg-making blonde said with a wave. He nodded. "Nice to meet you." Molly placed a hand on Susanna's thigh for a second.
Susanna was actually a client of mine at the dental office. We just hit it off and have been friends ever since. Nobody does a gentler but thorough scaling than my girl, Susanna said, wrapping an arm around Molly and giving her a squeeze. Never makes me bleed. That's because you floss regularly, Molly said with a laugh.
Smiling, Ryker moved his attention to the pretty Indian woman with the sleek black bob and nose ring, sitting in one of the overstuffed chairs by the window to Susanna's left. She had faded henna tattoos on her hands and expensive but tasteful and modest gold jewelry around her neck and on her ears.
I'm Evelyn,
she said with a polite but no-nonsense nod. Everything about her screamed doctor. The short trim of her nails, the way she sat up straight with her shoulders back, her constant awareness of everything around her, not to mention the fact that she was the only one not drinking wine. She was probably on call.
Evelyn and I met when Sasha fell at the playground and broke her arm a few years ago, Molly said. She was the on-call resident. But now she's a full-fledged attending, the redhead said with a smile. I'm Sienna. Nice to meet you. Sienna and I met at the gym a few years ago, Molly said. We became sweaty sisters in spin class together. I enjoyed it so much I became a personal trainer, Sienna added. Then opened up her own gym.
Susanna lifted her wine glass in the air toward Sienna in a toast.
Charge those billionaires a buttload of money to use your Pilates machines. Gotta pay my mortgage somehow, Sienna said, returning the wine glass lift.
So far, all the women he'd met seemed genuine and down to earth. They were also extremely supportive and uplifting of each other. The next woman he met was Rosalie, a black woman with long braids and a heart-shaped face. She'd been Sasha's fourth-grade teacher, but she and Molly just connected on a personal level and became friends. She also seemed authentic and didn't have Ryker seeing any red flags.
And that leaves Olivia and Kate,
Molly said, pointing to the last two women who shared the love seat. They had sour expressions on their pretty faces. Both were brunettes with voluminous waves that cascaded down past their shoulders. Olivia had brown eyes and Kate had hazel.
Their daughters, Sailor and Camden, played soccer with Sasha.
The women smiled tightly at Ryker and nodded, murmuring small greetings. A shame Sasha's not playing anymore, Ryker asked, directing his question to the two soccer moms. Are your daughters still playing?
Yes,
Olivia said curtly, before sipping her white wine.
Camden has been moved up to first string since Sasha left. They haven't won a game since she left, though, Kate added. Sailor is devastated.
They tried to keep their composure, and for the most part did a decent job, but Ryker was trained to detect even the slightest shifts in behaviors, and the women both slid their gazes to Molly and curled their lips into sneers.
Why did Sasha quit?
Evelyn asked, glancing at her phone, then back to Molly. Molly hesitated for a second before shrugging her slender shoulders.
She wants to focus on dance. She was feeling overwhelmed by how much soccer practice was cutting into dance and homework. Kids need some downtime, too.
Ryker wasn't looking at Molly, though. He was watching Olivia's and Kate's reactions. Their brows lifted, they exchanged looks and shook their heads. It was all so covert that unless you were paying close attention, you'd miss it. But he caught it.
That wasn't the only reason, though, was it?
Kate asked.
I think I'm ready to call it a night, Susanna announced, standing up and draining her wine glass. I think we should all call it a night.
She hit Kate and Olivia with a look that said, drop it or else, and the two antagonistic women were smart enough to abide and close their mouths. It was nice to meet everyone, Ryker said, standing up and getting out of their way when the women headed to the kitchen to collect their dishes. Can I make myself a second plate of all the food before you take it home?" Everyone, even Olivia and Kate, nodded. He loaded up his plate with deliciousness, then watched as Molly said goodbye to her friends. She closed the door behind the last to leave, Susanna, and blew out an exhausted breath.
Sorry about that.
Wandering into the kitchen, she drained the rest of the rosé into her glass. About what?
About all that.
She waved her hand toward the living room.
Olivia and Kate they're nice. They really are. I just think they might be a little salty, or their daughters are, about Sasha leaving the team. It's a lose-lose situation, really. When Sasha was on the team, Camden played less, but at least the team won. Now, with Sasha gone, Camden is obviously playing more, but the team has no hope of winning the upcoming tournament, let alone making the playoffs. I used to hear their griping about how much Adrian favored Sasha and that it was unfair how much more playtime she got than Sailor or Camden. Now I hear about how, with her gone, the team sucks. Nobody wins here.
Do any of them know about Adrian? Because you said that when parents asked him why Sasha quit, that he told them all to ask you.
Only Susanna. I don't really want a lot of people knowing. It's nobody's business. Jackson Hole is a small town with a lot of rich women who consume more gossip than they do calories in a day. And yeah, nearly everyone asked me, but I deflected and said the same thing I told the women tonight, that she was feeling overworked and overwhelmed and wants to focus on dancing, which isn't a lie.
He smirked at that. He knew how awful a liar Molly was. Her face went beet red and she got nauseous. If the lie was too big, she vomited. It was how Sasha found out there was no Santa Claus when she was 4. Something tells me Kate and Olivia don't believe that's the only reason.
Too bad. That's the only reason they're going to get. Adrian and I kept our relationship very private, at my request. I wanted to keep it quiet in the event it went south, which it did.
She took a healthy sip of her rosé, exhaled, and planted her hand on the island.
My number one priority is Sasha. Always Sasha. I need to protect her.
Of course. That's all our main priority. He moved closer to her, close enough to smell that intoxicating almond and gardenia scent. He hesitated a moment before taking the plunge and tucking a strand of wayward hair behind her ear. That prompted her to lift her gaze up to his. All he wanted to do at that moment was kiss her, take her in his arms and never let her go. But she was Brendan's wife, and any time he thought about making a move, Brendan's face would flash into his mind, and he stopped himself. It felt like a betrayal of the heart, a betrayal to his brother, to his best friend. He'd suffer in silence for the rest of his life before he ever betrayed a friend. Her bottom lip wobbled.
Am I just...
Her throat bobbed, and she licked her lips.
Am I just a frumpy, damaged single mom?
Where the fuck did that come from? His eyes widened and his jaw dropped. What? No, where the hell?
I love you,
she blurted out. Her hand slapped over her mouth and her eyes bugged out.
Oh my God, that came flying out of my face and I didn't mean for it.
She glanced at her wine glass sitting on the island, her hand still covering her mouth as she looked back at him.
I love you.
Her eyes squeezed shut.
Oh shit, I did it again. The wine.
Mal,
fuck it. I love you, Ryker. I have loved you for so long, and I have been trying not to say it, to just push it down, cover it up, and hide it, and not say it because you obviously don't feel the same way. But I can't hold it back anymore. I am so in love with you.
She swallowed and removed her hand from her mouth, her chest heaving with labored breaths.
You're in me.
She paused and scrunched her nose in a ridiculously cute way.
I mean, not like literally in me, but you're in my head, in my soul. You're like a disease. You're gingivitis. I'm infected with Ryker McKnight, and as much as I floss and use my electric toothbrush, I can't seem to get rid of you. When you're around, and even when you're not, you're all I think about. And now that you're here, I can't breathe. My heart hurts, and all I want to do is touch you, to feel you. I love you like all the time, every minute of every day, and I probably will for the rest of my life, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry if this is wrong and if you don't feel the same way, but...
A tear slid down the crease of her nose.
But I love you.
She released a stuttered breath and blinked watery green eyes at him, a deep frown on her lips as she gauged his reaction. His stupid heart, torn between the woman he loved and the fallen brother he loved, hammered unforgivingly against his ribcage. Too many voices crashed around in his brain until it was nothing but an infuriating buzzing sound. But maybe that buzzing sound was what he needed, because it tuned out all the voices telling him it was a bad idea, that loving Molly O'Shea was wrong. He crowded her until their hips crashed together, and he wrapped his hand around the back of her delicate neck, pushing her ass against the kitchen counter. "Not want you," he growled. "I have wanted you for ever." Her gaze tipped up to meet his, those sage orbs full of surprise. Her lips parted just a fraction. You're Bren's girl. He dropped his face into the crook of her neck. Why is my heart telling me two things at once? That loving you is the most natural feeling I've ever felt in my life, but it's also a betrayal to Bren. She gripped him by the face and pulled him free, so he was forced to look at her, forced to look into the face of the woman he was madly in love with, into the face of his best friend's wife. Because hearts can be really stupid. She pressed her forehead to his. Molly, kiss me. He blinked a few times and pulled his forehead away from hers. Kiss me and tell me that it doesn't feel right. And if it doesn't, then we'll pretend it didn't happen and never bring it up again. But Bren is dead. He's been dead for 13 years, Ryker. 13 years. We have grieved. We have shown him respect. I loved him, and only him when he was alive. I never looked at another man. But he is gone. A thick, spiky ball formed in Ryker's throat, and the backs of his eyes burned. He is gone, but I'm still here. She grabbed his free hand, the one that rested on her hip bone, and she pulled it between them, placing it over her heart. I'm alive. You feel that? I am alive. My heart is still beating, and for a very long time it has beat for you. And although I will never stop loving Brendan, I also know that he wouldn't want me to be alone, that he wouldn't want me to go the rest of my life without love. I think he would be happy to know his best friend loves me, that his best friend is protecting me and our daughter. I don't think he'd see it as a betrayal. I think he'd see it as you honoring your vow to take care of us, to take care of me. Ryker had seen war. He'd been stabbed and shot, tortured, and on the brink of death countless times. But nothing had ever been as painful as the battle inside him now. Just kiss me so we know, she said, her blinking causing fresh tears to tumble down her cheeks. Kiss me, Ryker. Kiss me. He didn't kiss her. He consumed her.
Chapter 6. Molly. They managed to make it to Molly's bed for rounds 2 and 3. Round 2 just consisted of Ryker's face between her legs because he needed a bit of recovery time. But by round 3, he was up and ready to go again. She was naked on her bed, lying on her stomach while he kissed and licked a trail from her ankles to her shoulder blades, when the sound of a vehicle in the driveway and a car door slamming popped their sexy bubble and brought them harshly back to reality. "Oh, shit!" Molly exclaimed, leaping up to her knees and scanning her bedroom for her clothes. That's when she realized they were still out in the kitchen. Sasha's home. She met Ryker's eyes with panic, and for a second he seemed entirely unfazed. But when he realized she was freaking out, he jumped into seal-worthy action and nodded. "Throw on a robe. I'll run out and grab our clothes." She bobbed her head and reached for her robe from the closet, but then screamed, "Stop!" at him, as he was on the threshold of her bedroom door. "If she comes in and you're naked in the kitchen..." "I'll be quick. You've never seen how fast I can move." Then he ducked out and was back in a flash with an armload of clothing. She breathed a sigh of relief as he slipped back into those alluring gray sweatpants and tugged his shirt over his head. But her reprieve from panic only lasted as long as a heartbeat because, just as the front door opened, Sasha's voice, radiating with fear, rang through the house. "Mom? Ryker?" Molly and Ryker locked eyes for a second. Then they both dashed out to the foyer where Sasha was standing in front of the closed door, white as a ghost, staring at a piece of paper the size of a postcard in her hand. Ryker reached her first and sidled up beside her.
What is it, Half-Pint?
He grabbed the paper and his face turned ashen before he lifted his gaze to Molly. "What?" Molly asked, taking the paper from him. It had a Polaroid photo taped to it. The photo was taken through Molly's kitchen window. That night, earlier, when she and Ryker were together. She was naked. He was naked, and she was holding on to her thighs as he fucked her into oblivion. The words "lying slut" were scrawled eerily in bright red pen across the photo and on the paper. "Oh, honey," Molly said, sweeping in and wrapping her arms around Sasha. I didn't want... Oh, God. I'm so sorry you found out this way." Sasha shook in Molly's arms, but she wasn't crying. "I don't care about you two together, Mom. I'm happy about that. It's about time, but someone was in our backyard peering through our kitchen window and taking pictures. They got past the cop outside."
Not someone,
Ryker said, baring his teeth and taking the paper and photo back from Molly. "You don't think it was Adrian, do you?" Molly asked. "He knows you're here. He wouldn't be so stupid as to..." Riker's brows hiked up.
People do really stupid things, Moll. Really stupid.
He glanced out the window.
The cop car is still parked outside. Stay here.
He took the paper and headed out the front door, locking it from the keypad. "Mom," Sasha said, hugging Molly tight. "That's really freaking creepy. Like the cameras in the house were really bad, too. I want to move." Molly looked up at her daughter, whose angelic face was full of terror. "Me too, sweetie." Less than a minute later, the door unlocked and Ryker, along with the police officer, Officer Linden again, returned. Officer Linden was on the phone reporting what had happened. Ryker only gave Molly and Sasha a quick nod before he went to the French doors and outside into the dark, where the photographer had to stand on the deck to see inside the kitchen window. "Let's check the security camera footage," Molly suggested to Sasha, keeping her arm around her daughter, but guiding them to the security panel in the dining room where they could review the footage. Officer Linden ended his call just as Ryker came back inside. They huddled behind Molly and Sasha as the footage from the evening started to play.
Whoever it was knows exactly where the cameras are because they're sticking to the blind spots,
Officer Linden said.
We made sure there were no blind spots when we installed the system,
Ryker said with anger, not directed at the cop.
One of the cameras has been covered.
He was gone again in a flash, out the French doors, only to return a second later with a black pillowcase.
This was thrown over the camera in the back.
Molly and Sasha gaped at him. "I see movement," Sasha said, pulling all their attention back to the screen. "Right there, in the corner of the driveway."
There are two people,
Ryker murmured.
How can you tell?
Officer Linden asked.
Look at the shadows on the grass from the moon. It's two figures.
Officer Linden's eyes widened.
Shit, you're right. At least one of them is a woman,
Ryker added.
The shadows are elongated,
the cop pointed out.
How can you tell? Shoulders are narrow,
Ryker said, pointing to the paused image on the screen. Ryker pulled out his phone and punched in a number, then walked away with it to his ear. "So, Adrian is working with someone?" Sasha asked. "I don't know, honey," Molly replied.
I have two cops headed to Mr. Huber's apartment now to question him,
Officer Linden said. Molly nodded and thanked him.
I'm going to see if they dropped something or left footprints we can go on.
Officer Linden said, nodding at Molly before heading out the front door to look for clues. Sasha shuddered in Molly's arms, and Molly squeezed her daughter tighter. "I'm so sorry about everything, kiddo." Sasha glanced up at her. "You and Ryker are together?" Hope flickered in her daughter's green eyes. "Is this new?" "We are working through some stuff," Molly said with hesitation. "But we have admitted that we love each other. It is new. Despite how long we've loved each other, admitting it is new." Sasha mustered a smile and wrapped both her arms around Molly. "I'm happy for you, and I've secretly hoped you guys would get together. For 5 years straight, that was what I wished for when I blew out my birthday candles." "What changed after 5 years?" Sasha shrugged. "I really wanted a cell phone." Snorting a laugh and kissing her daughter on the forehead, Molly guided them into the kitchen. "I'm going to make some tea." Ryker returned to the kitchen, resting his phone on the island.
"I've reached out to my hacker contact, and he's going to dig deeper into Adrian. He only went back a couple of years and stuck to relevant information, but I want him to go deeper and further back. I have this weird feeling that there is some kind of jealousy involved in this."
"Like Adrian is jealous of you?" Molly asked, opening up the long, shallow drawer on the island that housed all her different loose-leaf teas. She selected a calming chamomile and lavender blend and filled up a few tea balls while the kettle on the gas stove made a gentle roar as it was heating up.
"Maybe,"
Ryker said, his voice unconvinced.
"but now that we know there are two people, I'm wondering if it's someone else, like an old flame of Adrian's, and she's jealous of you."
"Of me?" Molly stupidly pointed at herself. "He never mentioned any exes." "You only dated for 2 months, Mom," Sasha pointed out. "How much did you tell him about your past in 2 months?" Molly gave her daughter an impressed look. She'd always been mature for her age, but given everything that had happened to them in the last few weeks, Sasha was really demonstrating just how grown up she really was. It was both wonderful and sad that Molly's little girl wasn't so little anymore. "I didn't tell him much," Molly admitted. "Only Susanna knows how Brendan—" She glanced at Sasha. Sasha rolled her eyes. "I know Dad killed himself, Mom. You've tried to hide that fact from me, but I know. I've known for a while. I've heard you guys talk about it before. Plus, we all know you're a terrible liar." Molly's heart crashed to her feet. "I'm so sorry, baby." Sasha dismissed it with a headshake. "It's fine. It sucks, but it's fine." The kettle squealed. Molly went over to the stove and turned off the element, then brought the kettle over to fill up the 3 mugs. She took a deep breath. "Only Susanna knows that Brendan killed himself. Everyone knows I'm a widow, but I've kept his cause of death a secret. People get really weird about suicide, and this town is so gossipy already." Ryker nodded and thanked her for the tea when she pushed the mug toward him.
"How much do you know about Kate and Olivia?"
Molly's head reared back. "No. Them? I know they seemed bitter tonight, but I honestly think that they're just upset Sasha left the team, especially with the playoffs coming up. They know the team doesn't have much hope with Sasha gone. They want to win more than they want their daughters to play."
"And if they think Sasha quitting and their daughters ultimately losing is because of your relationship with Adrian going south, who are they going to blame?"
he asked. She opened her mouth but didn't say anything. Cradling her mug on the counter with both hands, she let the warmth seep into her and soothe her tortured soul.
"Have any of your former teammates messaged you or reached out since you left the team?"
Ryker asked Sasha.
"Negatively or positively?"
Sasha pulled her phone out of her back pocket. "Yeah, I mean, pretty much all of them messaged me after I quit. A lot were sad and asked what happened. A few got mad and said I threw a hissy fit when I didn't get my way, but I ignored them."
"Who got mad?"
Ryker asked, accepting Sasha's phone from her. "Camden," Sasha replied. Ryker scrolled through Sasha's phone, his brows pinched tight.
Are Olivia and Kate married? He asked.
Olivia's husband travels a lot for work. As far as I know, their marriage isn't great, but it's not on the rocks either. She doesn't work, and they just have Camden. Her life revolves around her daughter, the PTA, the HOA, and the soccer team.
And Kate?
He probed. Divorced. And from what I've heard, because this town loves to gossip, it wasn't pretty. An icy chill swept down Molly's spine, and she trembled. I don't think they're capable of... somebody nailed Anthony to the side of the house. You've got to be pretty mentally unstable to do something like that. Animal cruelty is... I just can't believe they do something so horrific. Kate's vegan, for God's sake. Ryker handed Sasha back her phone just as his buzzed in his pocket. He answered it and put it on speakerphone.
You're on speakerphone, Chase. What did you find out? Took a bit of digging, but it would seem that Adrian Huber and Kate Gubler were in a relationship. They kept it pretty secret, and it didn't last long. But I managed to pull up some footage from a security camera of Adrian's building, and it shows Mrs. Gubler leaving his apartment at 2 in the morning. I was also able to dig into some emails and found some pretty racy communication between the two of them. And this relationship preceded Mrs. Gubler's divorce.
Molly's jaw dropped. Kate was sleeping with Adrian while she was married?
Yes,
Chase confirmed.
Whether Mrs. Gubler and her husband were separated at the time, I can't tell, but it would appear she was having an affair. Any idea when the relationship ended?
Ryker asked.
All email communication ended 2 weeks before Mr. Gubler filed for divorce. What's the timeline for all of this?
Ryker asked.
Everything has happened within the last 6 months. Has he dated any other women?
Ryker scratched at his whiskers and closed his eyes. This was getting fucking weird.
He dated a woman named Janine Gobio for a while. Then that ended, and he took up with Kate Gubler.
Ryker opened his eyes and glanced at Molly and Sasha.
Do you know a Janine Gobio?
They both shook their heads.
Wait, so you think that Mrs. Gubler killed Anthony because Mom dated Coach Adrian?
Sasha asked in a high-pitched voice.
So did Coach Adrian do any of what we thought he did?
I think Adrian is obsessed with Molly,
Ryker said. Chase agreed with an
mm-hmm. He probably planted the cameras in the house and followed Molly around. Kate is most likely upset by his lack of interest in her and his interest in Molly. She's lost 2 men, Adrian and her husband, and is not taking the rejection well. I don't know who is demented enough to kill a cat, but based on the fact that Molly has received 2 messages now calling her a slut, I would guess those were sent by Kate. She keyed your car and she took the picture of us together and taped it to the door.
But you said there were 2 people outside the house tonight, Sasha said. Is she working with Coach Adrian?
Ryker glanced at Molly and shook his head.
I think her accomplice was one of 2 people. Either her best friend.
Olivia, Molly said as dread coiled around her gut and squeezed like a hungry serpent.
Or her daughter.
Sailor?
Sasha asked with surprise. There was a knock at the front door.
It's Officer Linden,
he shouted. Molly left her spot at the island where her tea of salvation resided and went to open the front door. The officer's dour expression offered her little comfort as he stepped inside.
I found something around the far side of the house where you keep your trash bin.
Ryker and Sasha joined them in the foyer as Officer Linden, cleverly wearing gloves, opened his left palm to reveal a small teardrop earring.
Does this belong to either of you?
The cop asked. Molly and Sasha both shook their heads fervently. I just have sleeper hoops in my ears, Sasha said, pulling her dark hair back to show off the 3 holes she had in each ear that only had cute, tiny silver hoops. She had a 7th hoop in the top cartilage of her left ear, also known as the helix. She desperately wanted her nose pierced, but Molly wanted her to wait until she was 16. Molly shook her head and pulled her strawberry blonde locks away from her ears. I'm a simple girl with simple cubic zirconia studs that I haven't taken out in years. Just one hole in each lobe.
Do either of you recognize this earring?
Officer Linden asked. Molly shook her head. So did Sasha.
Kate was wearing them this evening.
Ryker said without hesitation. You remembered that? Molly asked, gaping at him.
I remember what each woman was wearing, each piece of jewelry that I could see, and I know that Olivia used to be a nail-biter and probably still would be, but she gets those hideous bedazzled acrylics to probably stop herself. But the amount of times she brought her fingers to her teeth and chewed was noticeable. The woman is nervous about something. The question is, what?
I've never noticed that before, Molly said, dumbfounded.
You're not trained to notice that kind of stuff. I am. But Kate tucked her hair behind her ears several times, and I noticed the earrings. Olivia had rose gold hoops with a small clear stone on the bottom of the hoop. Rosalie had pear-shaped diamond earrings, small and understated. Sienna wasn't wearing earrings, and Evelyn had 2 studs in one ear and 1 in the other. I didn't see what Susanna was wearing in her ears because she had her hair covering them the entire time. She did, however, have a white gold necklace with a small infinity symbol in the center.
Okay, so Molly was cut off by the cop's phone ringing.
Excuse me,
Officer Linden said, stepping into the living room and bringing his voice down to a hush. I've welcomed that woman, Kate, into my home, Molly said, that sense of dread turning into a nauseous sensation in her belly.
One last thing,
came Chase's voice from the counter where Ryker's phone still sat.
Oh, shit. Sorry, man,
Ryker said, and returned to the kitchen with Sasha and Molly behind them.
No worries,
Chase said.
It gave me a chance to keep digging. Anyway, it looks like Mrs. Goobler's daughter was recently taken into custody for shoplifting. Okay,
Ryker said.
What did she steal? Film for one of those Fujifilm Instax Polaroid cameras.
Chapter 7. Ryker. Officer Linden ended his phone call and joined them in the kitchen, where Chase relayed his information. Obviously, Officer Linden wasn't happy that a quote-unquote civilian was hacking into things. Too fucking bad. It helped that Chase lived on the west coast of Canada and refused to give up his name, location, and was calling from a burner phone. There wasn't much that Jackson Hole cop could do anyway. Thanks, Chase, Ryker said, ending the call and glancing at Molly and her daughter. The fact that the woman he loved and the kid he loved were dealing with this gutted him. He hated that he wasn't there to protect them sooner, and that Sasha's cat had paid the ultimate price. Neither woman felt safe in their own home. But now that they were almost certain of the culprits, he was going to make sure Molly and Sasha were never bothered again, that they always felt safe, because he would always be with them. Police just finished questioning Mr. Huber, Officer Linden said, accepting tea from Molly. He hasn't left his house all night. Then he glanced at Ryker with a suspicious glint in his eyes. Said he was told to stay away from Mrs. O'Shea or there would be hell to pay. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? Ryker shrugged. Nope. The officer tried to hide a smile, but did a shit job of it. Anyway, his neighbors corroborated his story, and we checked the security camera footage that his car didn't leave the parking garage all night. Camera footage that encompasses his front door also showed that Mr. Huber didn't leave his apartment all night either. Ryker got some side-eye from the cop. Camera caught a visitor wearing a ball cap that hid his face yesterday, though. Ryker cleared his throat and sipped his tea. Okay, so we can rule Huber out tonight. But the guy is still a creepy stalker who put cameras in the house and harassed Molly. Then he took it out on Sasha by benching her. And let's not forget the misogynistic things he said to Molly, calling her a cock tease and saying she owed him for the dates and dinners. The guy has incel creep written all over him. He might not be a cat killer, but he's still done some pretty heinous shit that can't go unpunished. Benching a player is not a felony, Mr. McKnight, and we can't confirm that it was Mr. Huber who installed the cameras or killed the cat.
Did you send cops to Mrs. Goobler's house?
We did, and nobody was home.
They're on the run, Molly whispered. They know we're onto them.
We have an undercover police car and officer parked outside Mrs. Goobler's home, so as soon as she returns, we'll have her. Molly nodded and gripped her mug tighter before bringing it to her lips. Their pensive silence was interrupted by the crackle of Officer Linden's radio clipped to his vest. We have a 467 on the gated community of Ridgeview Terrace. Address is 146 Buffalo Drive.
Molly's eyes bugged out. So did Sasha's.
That's Olivia's house,
Sasha whispered.
What's a 467?
Molly asked.
Domestic disturbance, Officer Linden said with a veiled calmness that Ryker saw right through.
That's where they've gone, Ryker said.
Kate and Sailor fled to Olivia's house. Officer Linden pressed the radio and responded appropriately. The need to deal with the people who hurt Molly and Sasha gnawed like a mouse at Ryker's gut. But he wasn't a cop, and no fucking way was he leaving Molly and Sasha.
You can go, he said to Officer Linden. I'll stay here with them.
The cop appeared torn for a second before nodding and heading out, the headlights from his cruiser flashing through the living room window as he pulled a U-turn and left the dead-end road.
So, now we wait?
Sasha asked, trying not to yawn, but failing.
We wait, Ryker confirmed. But you can head to bed if you want to, Half-Pint. You're safe. I won't let anything happen to you or your mom.
She wrapped her arm around his waist and squeezed while he pressed a kiss to the top of her head.
I like that you and Mom are finally together.
Me too.
Sasha hugged and kissed her mother goodnight, then retreated down the hall to her room, leaving Ryker and Molly in the kitchen. Lightning struck Molly's eyes, and she rushed to the cupboard under the kitchen sink, pulling out an all-purpose cleaner and some paper towels. She sprayed down the island and started to clean it.
We had sex on this island.
He snorted and grinned fondly at the not-too-distant memory.
Yes, we did. You also compared me to gum disease, if you remember.
She didn't meet his gaze as she furiously wiped down the marble.
Sash is awfully cool about us doing it where she has breakfast, he said, sipping his now lukewarm tea.
My child continues to surprise me with her maturity. Sometimes I wish she'd throw a temper tantrum or pee her pants. She just needs to stop growing up so fast.
He snorted again.
I don't think you want her to do either of those things.
I don't, no, but 14 years have gone by too damn fast. I just wish time would slow down.
It's gone by in the blink of a fucking eye, he agreed. I remember when she took her first steps. I was here for that. Remember like it was yesterday.
It feels like it was just yesterday.
Her exhale reached his bones, and his heart went out to her.
You're raising one hell of a kid. You've done and are doing an amazing job. Bren would be proud. We're all proud.
Resting his hands on her hips, he stopped her militant cleaning and turned her to face him. She put down the paper towel and blinked up at him.
I don't want to live here anymore.
He narrowed his brows.
What do you mean? Like in this house or Jackson Hole?
Jackson Hole, she confirmed. Sasha and I have been talking about it, only over the last couple of days, but she agrees. There's nothing keeping us here now that Brendan's parents have died. It's a small town that costs a fortune to live in, and all the tourists, it's exhausting. Sasha has surpassed the level of dance offered at the local studio, so she's taking online classes and just using the studio space. And I can get a job anywhere.
This time, when she sighed, she moved into his body and rested her cheek on his chest.
All this creepy stuff with Adrian and now Kate, it's just confirmed that we don't belong here anymore.
Where do you want to go?
He rubbed her back and held her close, just like he'd always dreamed of doing, like he never wanted to stop doing for the rest of his life. She lifted her head and glanced up at him.
I don't know.
Pulling in a deep inhale, he rested his chin on the top of her head and she snuggled back into him.
You know, I've been thinking about settling down.
She leaned back, removing her head from under his chin, and looked up at him.
You? The eternal nomad?
The left corner of his mouth tipped up.
We're all capable of change for the right reasons.
Where would you settle down?
Well, Ash and Nate have all this land that they're not doing anything with. She huffed a laugh.
It's called a ranch, and we both know they're doing plenty with it. They have horses and a petting farm and those cabins they rent out, not to mention Mika's dance studio and Triss's therapy clinic. They are doing plenty.
Yeah, but there's still enough unused land that putting a house on a little corner near the creek wouldn't upset the ponies too much. And they can always use a hand. I know there's a dental clinic in that little complex near the bakery. And Mika is a professional dancer, and I'm sure her classes are more advanced than what Sasha's learning here. Otherwise, Denver is only an hour away, and I like driving.
Are you suggesting we move to Colorado, move in together, and live happily ever after?
Shrugging, he flashed her one of his famous Ryker McKnight smiles. I mean, it's just a suggestion. Her grin winded him. Of course, we'll have to see what Sasha thinks of the idea. And there's the whole deal with you not being my wife. I don't know how God would feel about us living in sin. Her mouth opened and her eyes became saucers.
Wife?
That's when he put her out of her misery and chuckled, pulling her tight to him. Relax, woman. I'm kidding. God and I parted ways a long time ago. Don't give a shit what he thinks of me anymore. If anything, living in sin sounds hotter. She reared back and slapped his chest, but it wasn't hard with her dainty little hand. He caught her hand and intertwined their fingers before taking her mouth. I thought it would feel like a heart's betrayal, he murmured after they came up for air, like I was turning on Brendan. She shook her head.
I know. At first I thought the same thing, but over the years I realized that Brendan wouldn't want me to be alone. He wouldn't want you to be alone either. I think he's happy that we found our way to each other.
He nodded. I hope so. Then he went in for another kiss. But their lip lock was interrupted a minute later by a harsh knock at the door. I got it, he said, squeezing her hip bone, then heading to the foyer. He peered through the peephole to see Susanna standing on the welcome mat. Checking his watch and seeing that it was nearly midnight, he glanced at Molly, who stood in the kitchen. It's Susanna.
Really?
Molly approached him, a curious look on her face.
Well, let her in. She lives in the same gated community as Kate and Olivia, so maybe she knows something.
A frisson of unease skittered down Ryker's spine, and he did a mental double check that he had a few weapons on him. His gun, of course, was in his room, but he still had his garrote and his switchblade in his pocket. Reaching into his left pocket, he wrapped his fingers around the garrote cord, then opened the door with his right hand. Susanna, he greeted. What brings you by so late?
Do you know what's going on at Olivia's house?
Susanna asked, stepping inside the house before Ryker or Molly could invite her.
No,
Molly replied.
What? I don't know. There are like 3 cop cars. It's crazy. Why would you think I would know?
Molly asked.
You live closer to her than I do.
Oh, ha ha, Susanna laughed.
I don't know. You always seem to know what's going on, always have the latest gossip. No, I don't, Molly said slowly. I hate gossip, and you know that.
Susanna laughed again, and her eyes shifted across their faces in a suspicious way. She had her hair in a ponytail, unlike earlier that night when it had been down and covering her ears. The same teardrop earring that Officer Linden found on the side of the house hung from her left lobe, but the right lobe was naked. That frisson of unease intensified, spreading from Ryker's spine into his limbs. His fingers tightened around the garrote cord. Kate and Susanna had the same earrings.
I just wanted to come check on things. I hate how Kate and Olivia treated you earlier tonight, and I wanted to make sure you were okay.
Something about Susanna's smile and the way she kept swallowing, while also refusing to meet Molly or Ryker in the eye, sent up blinding red flags.
I'm okay,
Molly confirmed. She seemed nearly as suspicious of Susanna as Ryker was.
You could have texted, though. It's pretty late. Are you sure you're okay?
I'm fine, Susanna dismissed.
Just fine.
She smacked her lips together a few times.
Actually, do you think I could have a glass of water?
Sure, Molly said slowly, heading into the kitchen to grab a glass from the cupboard. Ryker had kept the door open and stepped just onto the welcome mat to see where Susanna parked her car. Her red Honda CR-V was in the driveway behind Ryker's rental truck. A quick scan of the neighborhood and the wooded area beyond the dead end proved unsuspicious, so he headed back inside, closing the door behind him.
Ryker!
Molly called, panic in her voice and sending his entire body into attack mode. He rounded the corner into the kitchen to find Molly standing behind the island with her hands up, while Susanna pointed a gun at her. Susanna inched herself around the kitchen enough that she could see Ryker while keeping the gun on Molly. "What's going on?" he asked slowly, his eyes moving from Susanna's freaked-out face to the Glock in her hand.
"I really liked you," Susanna said, her voice quavering. "I considered you a friend." "We are friends," Molly agreed. "Good friends. You're the only one who knew about Adrian and Sasha's cat. You're the only one who knows how my husband died. I've trusted you with secrets I haven't trusted anyone else with, even though we haven't known each other as long as I've known some of the others. We just had the right kind of connection. So, what's going on?"
Susanna's top lip curled into a sneer.
"Adrian loves me, not you, not Kate. He loves me."
Molly glanced at Ryker. "You're the ex that cheated on Adrian to make him go all jealous and snoop into Molly's phone," Ryker said, putting the pieces together.
"It was a mistake. It happened once when I went home to Indianapolis to visit my parents. I ran into my high school crush. I'd just lost 70 pounds and gotten my new boobs. Ethan flirted with me. He never even knew I existed in high school. But then he saw me, and I was drunk, and it was a mistake." "I don't understand," Molly said. "Why didn't you tell me about you and Adrian? I never would have dated him if you asked me not to."
"First, he slept with Kate Gubler, but I made sure that ended." "How?" Ryker asked.
"I told her husband. It ended their marriage and her relationship with Adrian." "Does Kate know?" Molly asked.
Susanna shook her head.
"Anonymous email. But then Adrian took up with you. The cameras were meant to frame him as a pedophile, that he was watching Sasha. If the town thought he liked little kids, but I showed him that I didn't believe that to be true, he'd see that I still loved him, and he'd realize he still loves me. We could move away together, start fresh." "You installed the cameras in my house?" Molly exclaimed, her eyes bigger than basketballs. "But since Adrian denied setting up the cameras and they didn't have enough proof to pin it on him—"
Susanna was confessing to everything.
"Why?" "Did you—" Molly swallowed. "Did you kill Anthony, too?"
Susanna shrugged.
"Sent a message to you. I didn't enjoy it, but something needed to be done, to keep you and Adrian apart, to get the town to turn on him so the only person he could turn to was me."
"There were two people on the camera, two shadows," Ryker said.
"Olivia and I were framing Kate to take the fall."
Why was she confessing? Why was she here? This didn't make any sense. Surely Molly told Susanna what Ryker did for work, or used to do for work. The woman was a fool to come to the house, even with a gun. She had to have a bigger plan, unless she'd absolutely fallen off her damn rocker from the debilitating jealousy, and this was the plan. Come, confess, and wield a gun. He glanced down the hallway at the closed bedroom doors. Thank God Sasha was in her room fast asleep. He wanted to pull out his phone and dial 911, but the crazy lady with the gun had some alert gray eyes that didn't leave him.
"Why was Olivia helping you?" Molly asked. "Because she's my sister?"
Susanna said, a confused expression on her face like Molly should know this. Molly looked like her head was going to explode. Clearly she did not know this.
"Well, half-sister, and we only just found out a few years ago when we realized my mom had an affair with her dad, who was also her boss. We did the online DNA tests and figured it out." "Why keep it a secret?" Molly asked. I don't understand any of this. You know this town survives on gossip. We love it, we just don't want to be part of it. Olivia's vendetta is against you. You dated Adrian, and when you ended it with him, he took it out on Sasha. Benching her hurt the team. And when Sasha quit, that hurt the team even more. Olivia was annoyed enough when Sasha was on the team because Camden rarely got to play, but with Sasha leaving, the team sucks and won't make playoffs. So you hatched this plot as revenge because your ex loves me and not you, and Olivia jumped on the bandwagon because of the soccer team?" Molly was doing a fantastic job of keeping Susanna talking.
She was asking all the right questions and remaining as calm as anybody could under the circumstances.
People have done crazier things for love. I suppose, Molly mused, her gaze skittering to Ryker. I don't understand. We're friends. I trusted you.
This story was getting more convoluted and bizarre by the second. Ryker still couldn't understand why Susanna came here and was confessing everything. Unless she felt painted into a corner and realized there was no way out, so she decided to leave as much devastation as possible in her wake before ending things. Was murder-suicide her plan here? Given the deranged glint in her eyes, Ryker wouldn't put it past her. We looked into Adrian's history and only discovered he dated Kate, but not you. Why? Ryker asked.
Susanna is my middle name. I only started going by it recently.
Why? The questions just kept mounting up. This woman was nuts. Then it hit him. You're Janine Susanna Gobillo, Ryker said, dumbfounded. It wasn't a question.
Gobillo is my legal name, but I've started using my mother's maiden name, Talmadge.
Fuck. He really should have done background checks on all the women in Molly's book club, but that would have taken time, and he'd only just met them all that night. Chase could only work so fast.
Why are you here?
Molly asked, confusion, exhaustion, and terror all fighting for the top spot on her beautiful face.
I don't want Adrian. You can have him. You can win him back. He won't want me unless you're out of the picture, unless he had nowhere else to go. He loves you.
The gun shook in Susanna's, or Janine's, or whoever the fuck she was, hand.
I'm leaving, Molly said. Ryker and I have finally told each other how we feel, and we're moving.
Now it was Susanna's turn to look confused, but that lasted only a second. Her gaze narrowed and she shook her head.
You're lying. No, Susanna. Janine, I'm not, Molly said slowly. There's nothing keeping Sasha and me in Jackson Hole anymore. My in-laws have passed away and she's outgrown her dance studio. We're moving on.
Her eyes landed on Ryker and she smiled.
We're following our hearts.
At that moment, out of the corner of his eye, Ryker spotted Officer Linden, gun at the ready, hiding off to the side of the deck behind the French doors. Were there more cops? Did they have the place surrounded? He'd been inching himself closer to Susanna as slowly as he could. He'd made it about 3 feet without the wingnut noticing. At this point, he could possibly kick the gun out of her hand, but there was still the risk of it going off and hitting Molly. He'd been in a standoff before, but never when the gun was pointed at the woman he loved. A hot tear made its way down Molly's cheek.
I swear, Susanna, I never meant to hurt you. To hurt Adrian or Kate, Olivia or Camden, or anybody. Please, don't do this. We'll leave tomorrow. We'll leave Jackson Hole tomorrow and never return. You can have Adrian all to yourself. There are so many wonderful things about you. I'm sure he'll take you back. I'm sure he's just blowing off steam with other women. He knows it's a mistake. He knows you love him, and I'm certain he still loves you.
Susanna seemed to actually be thinking about it, and it was at that pause, that moment where she wasn't looking at Ryker, that he decided to make his move. He threw himself in front of and on top of Susanna, in front of the gun, pushing her into the counter while deflecting the aim of the gun away from Molly. But she pulled the trigger, and he felt it go straight through his shoulder. Blinding pain rocked his entire body as he collapsed on top of Susanna on the floor. Molly screamed, and pandemonium ensued a moment later with police officers running in through both the front door and the French doors. Sasha's voice echoed behind him, and Molly ran to her.
It's okay, get out of the way, don't look.
But then Sasha must have looked, because she screamed Ryker's name at an ear-piercing volume. Mr. McKnight, came the familiar voice of Officer Linden. Have you been shot? Yeah, Ryker groaned, rolling off Susanna and against the oven. Shoulder. Don't think it hit anything major. He closed his eyes and grit his teeth from the blinding pain. It would be nice when he went into shock and the adrenaline kicked in. It'd hurt a lot less. Another officer was hauling Susanna to her feet and putting her in cuffs, while Officer Linden helped Ryker sit up against the oven. Ryker grabbed the tea towel that hung from the oven handle and pressed it to his gunshot wound, sucking in a sharp breath from that more than a bite of pain. Lean forward, Officer Linden said. Ryker did as he was asked. Looks like it through and through at least. Ryker nodded. Not the first time I've been shot. This is nothing. I can make a necklace from all the bullets. Officer Linden snorted. We've an ambulance on the way, sir. Molly and Sasha came into view, both of them crying with terror-riddled faces. The adrenaline was starting to kick in and the pain was numbing. He smiled bleakly at them. Hi, ladies. They both dropped to their knees and hugged him, but he winced when they squeezed a little too hard. Then Molly smacked his chest, his shirt covered in blood.
That was stupid as hell. Don't ever do anything like that again.
What, throw myself in front of a crazy person with a gun for you? I think I'll definitely do that again if the opportunity presents itself. Sasha and Molly choked out chuckles through their sobs.
Let's get out of here, Sasha said. This town is... She glanced around at the ongoing chaos of cops in the kitchen. There's nothing here for us anymore.
Molly wrapped her arm around her daughter.
How about Colorado?
She was a clever kid and caught on instantly. Her smile made the pain in Ryker's shoulder almost completely disappear.
Like on a ranch? With horses and cows and goats and stuff? And a dance studio with an amazing dance teacher who also happens to be married to one of my many uncles?
Is there such a place? Ryker asked, scratching his chin. Sasha beamed.
When do we leave?
Tomorrow, Molly suggested. Ryker and Sasha looked at her like she was crazy, but she just shrugged.
Or 2 weeks so I can give my notice at the dental office and we can pack?
Sasha nodded.
2 weeks.
I better call Asher and Nate and tell them we want some of their land, Ryker said, just as the paramedics came into the kitchen with their bag of toys and fun painkillers.
Let's first get you cleaned up. Then we'll call them and tell them the good news in the morning,
Molly said, helping him to his feet. He winced a little when his arm dropped to his side, then made his way over to the couch so the paramedics could assess him.
So it was Susanna?
Sasha asked, snuggled on the love seat with Molly as the paramedics fixed up Ryker.
Apparently, Molly said. I still can't believe it.
Officer Linden joined them and checked on Ryker, his gaze full of guilt. I never should have left. I'm really sorry. Ryker shrugged his good shoulder. Had it under control, man. Don't sweat it. How'd you know to come back, though? Olivia sung like a canary, he said plainly. She gave up Susanna to save her own ass. Sailor was bullied into stealing the film by Camden, who got it for her mom. Apparently Camden was well aware of what her mother was doing and helped however she could. We have Olivia and Camden in custody as well.
So Coach Adrian didn't do anything that we thought he did?
Sasha asked. He still went through Molly's phone, stalked her, and treated her like crap, Ryker pointed out. He's not innocent, but he's not guilty of the crimes we initially accused him of. Mr. Huber is willing to cooperate in any way we need him to, Officer Linden added. He seemed genuinely remorseful for what happened to Mrs. O'Shea and understands that he handled things poorly. He's not off the hook, but he's not the one on trial for a buttload of felonies, Ryker said. The cop nodded. Indeed. Mrs. O'Shea, do you feel okay to offer your statement now, or would you prefer tomorrow morning? Molly glanced at her phone. It was well past midnight, and dark bags of fatigue hung under her pretty green eyes. Tomorrow, Ryker answered for her. We need to sleep, but we'll come down to the station and all give our statements. I understand, Officer Linden replied. He rested a gentle hand on Ryker's good shoulder. I'm glad you're okay, but don't ever do that again. I will if there's a gun pointed at either of these women. The cop pulled in a deep breath, but eventually nodded. Yeah, okay. Then he wandered away with a defeated headshake. The paramedics advised Ryker to go to the hospital. He declined. He'd been shot up far worse than this before. He knew what he could handle. Just give me some morphine and I'll sleep like a baby. With eye rolls, they shot him up with enough morphine to have him smiling like an idiot on a white puffy cloud.
I'll get him to the hospital tomorrow, Molly said. We all just need to be together in the house tonight, with the doors locked and the blinds closed.
There was little room for anybody to argue with them. So eventually the house emptied. Molly locked the door, closed the drapes everywhere, and set the alarm. Sasha snuggled into his good side, and Molly gently nestled into his bandaged arm with the sling. He closed his eyes, a big smile on his face. "This is heaven." They giggled. "You're high," Molly said. "Even without the morphine, this would still be heaven." "You were just shot by a jealous, crazy woman and refused to go to the hospital," Sasha said. "I think this is the opposite of heaven." "Nope, it's heaven. Me here with the two women I love most in the entire world." "Aw," they both cooed. "We're gonna have a good life, the three of us." "Yes, we will," Molly agreed. "Surrounded by family, animals, and fresh air. No more of this small-town gossip or fake friends. No more jealous soccer moms and creepy coaches," Sasha added. "No more looking backward," Ryker said, leaning over and kissing each woman on the head. "Only forward. And even with my eyes closed, the future looks damn bright."
Epilogue. Molly. 1 year later. "She's magnificent, isn't she?" Molly asked, beaming, crying and clapping as Sasha finished her performance on stage with the rest of her dance class, and they all curtsied in their tutus and tights.
She really is. I think she could go all the way.
Ryker said honestly.
Mika certainly thinks so.
A hard lump of pride and emotion hung heavy in the back of Molly's throat. She never dreamed that she could ever be this happy again. But she was. They'd been in Colorado for a year now, and all three of them were thriving. She'd managed to get a job immediately when they moved, and she adored the dentist and her co-workers at the local dental clinic. One of their hygienists had just retired, so Molly showing up with her resume was kismet. Ryker worked on the ranch with his best friends and brother, since Decker fell in love with Mika's best friend Joni and had also moved onto the ranch, and Molly had never seen him so happy. And Sasha? Well, she was flourishing. She danced, she rode horses, and smiled all the damn time. She played soccer on a local rec team for fun, but poured her heart and soul into dance. Finally, after 14 years of Molly and her daughter doing it alone, pretending just the two of them was enough, they were really, truly happy. Because they had family. Because they had a home and a bright and shiny future. Ryker had gone and bought a bouquet for Sasha's performance. He doted on her more than ever now. Not that he hadn't spoiled her rotten since she was a baby, but he loved her like she was his own. And Sasha adored Ryker just as much. They had a bond that sometimes even made Molly jealous, but she also loved that her daughter felt so comfortable with someone else. The bigger the village, the better. They waited with all the other parents for the dancers to come out from backstage, and one by one the heavily made-up teenagers with their tight ballerina buns emerged. Molly hated how much makeup they had to wear, because it always made Sasha break out, but it was par for the course when it came to dance. Mika and Joni were still backstage with some of the dancers, but Sasha came out with a couple of her friends, an enormous smile on her face. She lunged at Ryker first, only bruising Molly's ego just a smidge.
Amazing, Half-Pint. Just amazing.
He squeezed her tight enough and leaned back so that her toes lifted off the ground, and she giggled. Eventually, he released her and handed her the flowers. Bringing his voice down, he leaned in so only Molly and Sasha were supposed to hear.
In my opinion, you're the best dancer in that whole show. Like, you need a solo performance already. I'll talk to Mika.
Sasha snorted and rolled her eyes. I'm not, but thanks. Then she hugged Molly. You were incredible, Molly said, tears springing from her eyes again. You never cease to amaze me, especially since I have no rhythm and 2 left feet.
Your dad had rhythm. You got it from him,
Ryker said. They all smiled, even though it still hurt sometimes to think and talk about Brendan. It also got easier in the last year, probably because they all made a point of talking about him more on the ranch. There were more of them around to share stories and tell Sasha all about her father and the shenanigans he got up to. In a strange way, they'd brought a part of him back to life by moving away from his hometown. Just because Jackson Hole was where Brendan was from didn't mean that was where his heart was. His heart was with his family, with his brothers, and they made sure to keep his memory alive and well so his daughter would know all about him.
So, where do you want to go for dinner?
Ryker asked, looping his arm around Sasha's shoulder.
I basically get whatever I want after an amazing performance like that, right?
Barring it's not monkey brains or shark fin soup, I'm pretty much willing to take you out for whatever your heart desires.
It's not food that I want, she said, glancing between them.
Booze?
Ryker asked, confused.
You're 15. Try again.
Sasha rolled her eyes.
I want you two to get married.
Molly nearly choked on nothing. Well, maybe it was spit or air, but she started to cough on something invisible that was trying to kill her.
You've been in love with each other forever. You live together. Get married already. I want a wedding.
Then you get married,
Ryker said dryly. She rolled her eyes again like teenagers did way too freaking often.
It doesn't have to be big, but you deserve a celebration. We all do.
Besides, we missed Nate and Mika's wedding. But Decker and Joni still have to get married, and Cal and Hannah, Molly put in. There will be other weddings.
They're dragging their feet too. Who knows if that'll ever happen? But you two, you could give us a wedding.
Ryker and Molly looked at each other. My child is being awfully controlling, Molly said. We've had this conversation. We're happy with how things are.
Are we?
Ryker asked. Molly squinted at him. Aren't we? He shrugged.
I mean, if we are, then I'll just return the ring in my pocket and go buy a boat.
Her mouth dropped open, and she ping-ponged her eyes back and forth between her cheeky, grinning child and her handsome, whatever he was. You two planned this?
Well, we were going to do it over dinner, but Half Pint decided to ambush me right here.
Now it was his turn to roll his eyes, but he was smiling. People milled all around them in the auditorium. It was such a strange place for a proposal. And yet, Molly actually kind of loved it. What if I say no? He lifted his now perfectly healed shoulder.
Then we go home and continue to live in sin.
I thought you parted ways with God a long time ago.
I did, but to those who still have the guy on their speed dial, we're living in sin.
She snorted. And if I say yes?
You'll make your one and only perfect child incredibly happy,
Sasha chimed in. Well, in that case.
Seriously?
Sasha asked. Molly mimicked Riker's nonchalant shrug. Sure, why not? Let's get married. Sasha squealed and hugged them both.
I'm going to be the best maid of honor ever!
Who said anything about shh? Sasha said, pressing a finger to her mother's lips. We'll discuss details later. Ryker chuckled and gazed down at her, his eyes full of love.
You want to get hitched?
Do you? I absolutely do. Though, just for the record, our life is pretty fantastic the way it is. He tucked his finger beneath her chin and tipped it up, then brought his mouth down to hers.
Yeah, but calling you my wife will make it so much better.
Then he kissed her, and Molly could have sworn she heard Brendan's voice somewhere saying,
Finally.
We hope you enjoyed listening to My Stupid Heart, written by Whitley Cox, performed in dual narration by Ava Lucas and Cale Williams. Produced by Pinup Audio. Text copyright 2025 by Whitley Cox. Production copyright 2025 by Whitley Cox. All rights reserved.